God damn. I can't remember the last time I did a live stream. Feels like it's been forever. Once upon a time, the people that know I used to do these like every week. At a point, even every day. It's terrible. How we doing? How we doing, guys? Keezy said he's back. Yeah, I was saying I can't remember the last time I did like one of these streams. It's been forever. Like honestly, it's been so long. Someone said, "Are you gay?" I'm finished. That's actually funny. Hi, what's up, Deej? I'm still laughing at this guy that asked me if I'm gay. That's so funny. Donda, I haven't been following it. I haven't even looked at like the listening party or like any of that really. I honestly don't even know what's going on. Like I really don't. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but yeah. My last one was Raf, was it? I think my last live stream was on Phoebe Philo, I think. When Phoebe Philo made her own brand, like that news. Ye kept Jersey on the album, so everything will be okay. Yeah, see, I haven't even been following the album. Like, I don't even know what songs are on it. I feel like I'm so like out of the loop. But I've just been like really busy with work, so I don't even know like when the album's released. I really don't even know. I honestly don't know. Someone's asked me about Gizmo's brand. I don't really know much about Gizmo's brand. Like I've seen it. I saw him promoting it on Instagram, but I haven't really looked into it, like the looks or the fabrics and all that sort of stuff. Said, what's the goatee doing? The goatee is doing its own thing. Okay, so the album released 6 hours ago. Okay, interesting. Let me check. 1 second. Interesting. All right, cool. Why are there so many songs? Jesus, that's a lot of songs. Oh well. Am I still studying at CSM? Yes, because I just finished first year. So yeah, I have a long way to go as far as CSM is concerned. I still have 2 years to go. So yeah. Did I see the Kim and Balenciaga wedding gown? Yes, I saw that. That's what I mean by I'm out of the loop. I don't know what's happening, but I just see stuff online. And a lot of people are talking about that. Do I like tabbies? Yes, but I wouldn't wear them personally. Like they're not my personal style, but I do like them. Um, oh, Genesis. So I'm going to Belgium on the 19th of September, but I think I have to quarantine for 1 day. So really, I'll be out and about from the 20th of September. I know you moved to Belgium, didn't you? And I think you moved to Antwerp, if I'm not mistaken. Zevelos. Yeah, that Kanye album, there's like so much stuff to listen to. What time is it here? Over here, it's 8 p.m., 8 p.m. London time. Have I ever thought of buying CCP Tornado boots? Yes, when I used to be a hype beast. No, on a serious note, when I first got into fashion, I actually I felt this sort of like pressure to dress a certain way to kind of like prove I'm into fashion. So I kind of leaned into like wearing brands that I thought made me, well, in my head, they made me think I was different when I really wasn't. I was just like buying into a certain subculture, and CCP was like part of it. And I remember at the time, this is probably like 4 or 5 years ago, people were buying like the tornado boots. People were buying, the paint, I don't know what they're called, but the CCP boots that have like the spiky paint soles. And I was gonna buy all of those, and I like saved money up for it. And then at one point, I was just like, "What am I actually doing? I don't even like this stuff." So yeah, no, I kind of just do my own thing, which is a good thing. Saves you a lot of money. Yes, I will let you know. I'll let you know. I'll definitely let you know. I'll let you know. Do I still have you on Instagram? Why don't I see your post? Wait, 1 second. 1 second. Why can't I find Genesis on Instagram? Strange, strange, strange. Very, very strange. Genesis, what's your Instagram name again? I've forgotten. Okay, cool. Let's go do these questions. What do you think about Balenciaga being in the same conversation with the baby and Marilyn Manson? I feel like there's something that I missed and I don't, so you're gonna have to elaborate on that. I don't think I know what the story is there. I just recently moved to London. How do I get into the fashion circles here? I don't know anyone. Now that COVID has lifted, honestly, just go to events. Um, yeah, in London, there's fashion events like literally all the time. So that's kind of how you meet people. In London, for the most part, people are actually quite friendly, especially if you're a girl, more so if you're a girl than a guy. If you're a girl, I feel like it's easier to get around. If you're a guy, there's a bit of animosity. It's kind of strange. Um, People ask questions that are heavily Fernando related. Yeah, I don't know why people ask me these questions. Who are your favorite designers at the moment? Oh, Tebe Magugu. I'm trying to think at the moment. Tebe Magugu, Lagos Space Program, definitely. Lucanio Ndingi, he's like from South Africa. Um, who else I really like? I'm a big fan of Isabel Beninato, still even till now. So yeah. Opinion on Arndemir Lemeister Vitello boots. It depends on which ones you're talking about. So I own Vitello Fall Winter 2014 Vitello boots, and like every season they change the shape and stuff. And I actually didn't buy Vitello boots for a very long time because I hate Vitello boots with heels. I don't like the way it looks. I think the shape is a bit weird. And those are the ones that Andy kept releasing like season to season under Sebastian Munier. And it wasn't until recently that Claudio and Antonioli took over the brand. They started re-releasing like archive pieces. And then they re-released the exact Vitello boots I was about to spend 2K on Grailed for. So then I bought it for retail on the Andy website. So that's my opinion on Vitello boots. I like some of them and I dislike others. And also, actually, recently, the quality of Andy has kind of gone down, which is something that when Claudio bought the brand, he said he wanted to improve. So if you bought Vitello boots between like 2017 to 2020, the quality is like terrible. So that's another thing. Are you ever going to rate subscribers' fits? I think it'll be a fun thing. It's just that a lot of the problem with fashion in general is that a lot of people take stuff too seriously. And like, I don't, okay, I take fashion seriously, but not as seriously as people might think. And like, when I'm rating subscribers' fits, everyone knows at the end of the day, fashion is like self expression. It's just like my opinion is just subjective. So when I'm giving my opinion, it's not like I'm saying you're wrong, I'm right. But the last time I did it, people took it so personally that I was just like, okay, I'm just not going to do this again. Um, so yeah, that's why I kind of like stopped doing that. Thoughts on the recent Virgil Abloh collaboration? Huh? How will Virgil Abloh collaborate with Louis Vuitton? I thought he was the artistic director. Thoughts on Donda merch being $200 but looking basic considering it's a Balenciaga collab. Once again, I'm out of the loop. I haven't seen. Someone asked me about Donda earlier, and I haven't followed it, like not even slightly, because of like work. But I'm gonna search now. I didn't know it was in collaboration with Balenciaga. That's interesting. Wouldn't you think though, if it's in collaboration with Balenciaga or whatever, doesn't that justify like a higher price point because of the name? Do you have friends also outside from the fashion industry mindset? Yeah, most of my friends don't care about fashion, to be honest. I have friends from basketball because I used to be a basketball player. I have friends from athletics. I still do athletics. I have, yeah, a lot of things. A lot of things. A lot of, yeah. Now that I think about it, most people I know actually don't care about fashion. Like I'm talking on a personal level, not like online. Yes, Genesis, this is true. This is one thing I wanted to talk about today, actually. The fact that I'm so happy that the new Andy flagship store is opening in Antwerp next month. And I'm literally going to be in Antwerp like very soon. So I get to see it. That's amazing. Thoughts on overwhelming tuition fees in fashion schools? I live in South America and it's been hard to find scholarships, etc. I just wanted to study at CSM. Yeah, the problem with like international schools like CSM or schools in America is if you're not a native to the area, it's super expensive. And in that case, you just have to, like, everyone's circumstances are different. And I think whatever circumstance you're in, your main focus should just be like improving your skills any way you can. I don't think it's necessary to go to fashion school. I think it helps immensely, but I don't think it's necessary. So you just have to make do with what's available to you. I actually just got some Vitellos earlier this year on Grailed for $650, I believe. I love them. That's amazing. That's amazing. So you think that a lot of non-white designers seem to have to design around their culture and struggles rather than their own personal stories and struggles? Huh? Okay, maybe are you asking me if non-white designers have to design around their culture and their struggles? I don't think so. I think they can if they want to. They don't really have to. Not. I'm thinking of black designers I know now. Not all of them do that. Some do, but not all of them do that, like the big ones. Obviously, you have brands like Pierre Moss or Tebe Magugu that talk about their culture and their heritage and like what they've been through. But then you have designers like Samuel Ross, who's more inspired by architecture, and it's not really about like personal struggle or anything. Um, so Demna was the creative director of the Donda merch. Why does it look so basic? Huh? I'd expect way more from Demna. That's a bit weird. But then again, it is merch, so it is what it is. Do I invest in Bitcoin? No, I do not. But I invest in other things. Boots recommendation up to €800. Well, to be honest, the only boots I have are Vitellos now that I think about it. I'm more of like a what my style now, I just wear a lot of loafers. So I have many different pairs. I have these like Margiela loafers. You know what? I might actually have to make a video on like stuff I picked up recently. But I have these Margiela loafers, and then I bought Dr. Martens loafers recently as well. So that's what I really wear. I don't really wear boots. So I can't help you there. You have to ask who's good with boots. Sanjeev. Sanjeev is the lord of boots. Do you think that fashion culture is a bit overrated? Seems a bit elitist. I wish it was a bit more welcoming, but I could be completely wrong. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Fashion is just a bit weird. Sometimes it gets a bit tiring, but I think for every like annoying person there's also an amazing person who just wants to like help you with your journey. I just think that the annoying people are like a loud minority. But yes, it's just really annoying. Like even when I make videos, for example, like I think so. If you go into my comment section, people are so like ingrained in like trying to prove me wrong. I don't know why, that they say stuff that like, okay, let me give you a good example. So my last video was about the new Vetements brand, right? That Guru and Vasalia made. And in the video, I clearly stated more, billions of times that Demna is from um he's from Georgia. And then later on in the video, I was talking about like how he's inspired by Balkan heritage and culture. And then people started commenting, Demna's not Balkan, he's not Serbian, he's from Georgia. And I was like, yeah, if you watch the video, then you would know that I said he's from Georgia. That doesn't mean that he isn't inspired by Balkan culture or like Slavic culture, which he clearly is. So it's just like people are so like that's the kind of weirdness that you get in fashion. People are so ingrained in like trying to prove you wrong or I know more than you type of thing that like they don't even listen to what you say and then they basically repeat what you say in the comments. It's just like so yeah. Do you have any opinions about the Maison Margiela Tabby boots? I'm still trying to understand why they're so popular / the hype of them, besides the fact that they are Maison Margiela. Well, they're Margiela obviously is like one of the most popular brands amongst fashion circles. I feel like Margiela Tabby boots are like it's the middle ground between something being wearable but avant-garde, and it's also very versatile. So Tabby boots go with a lot of things. Like you can wear them with skinny jeans, wide fitting pants, skirts, shorts. Like they go with so many things that it's a good thing to purchase, like for versatility purposes. Like it works with a lot of things. And then also, I think that it takes a certain type of person to wear tabbies. I'm not saying that like if you wear tabbies, you're so avant-garde, but like they're 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 recognizable to the point where if you see someone wearing tabbies, you're like, oh, this person knows about fashion to a certain extent. And I think a lot of people buy into that aspect as well because they want to be part of that community. But yeah, there's not that many stories to it. I know Margiela was inspired by Japanese slippers that are that tabby shape, and then he just transformed it into a shoe, which is a lot of Margiela's footwear were inspired by something, whether we're talking about the replica sneakers, which were inspired by German army trainers. So yeah, that's kind of what Margiela did. Pierre Moss. So if you look at my live stream that I did, it's titled Phoebe Philo. It's to do with Phoebe Philo coming back. I talked about the Pierre Moss show in depth. I feel like non-white designers don't have as much pressure to design for their people and just make stuff that everyone likes. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think there's a lot of stuff in fashion that people don't like to realize is like rooted in racism. So like I feel like if a black design, let's say who's a really good black designer that doesn't get credit. Okay, Shane Oliver. Now I feel like Shane Oliver is respected and like people understand Hood by Air. But I remember when Hood by Air was really big before they like quit. And no one, let me not say no one, but a lot of people didn't understand it. And a lot of people were just like, this is trash. I think that ignorance is rooted in racism, whether people want to accept it or not. And it was that ignorance that they just didn't even want to understand it. They're just like, this is trash. We don't care about you guys. And it's only now in hindsight that people look at it and they're like, oh, this is amazing. Whereas I see like even in London, there's so many mediocre designers that have a platform. I'm just like, Jesus. So yeah, I do feel like some it's not only black designers, it's just like ethnic minority designers. They have a lot more pressure, but that's why I try to get my head outside of like narratives or narratives that people have painted and just try to think for myself when I'm looking at clothing. Thoughts on the new Sanjeev drop? I haven't seen it. I know he was gonna like drop something soon, but I haven't seen it. At what point do you stop with fashion? Like, do you consider too esoteric? Uh, so okay, so recently I kind of had a break from fashion. It's why I like stopped posting, and it's just the community around fashion that really started to like irk me, and I just had to take a break from it. And I stopped reading about fashion as well. I started reading like financial books and like self-improvement books. The thing that makes me stop with fashion is really just the community around it and how people in it can be and how like pretentious people are. That at some point I just can't deal with it. It's just annoying. Speaking out, Dark thoughts on their recent collaboration with Rick Owens, especially the boots. The Oxfords are a bit basic. When you say recent collaboration, are you talking about the Mega Lace collaboration? Or was there a newer one that I missed? Let me see if there was a newer one. Okay, I think you are talking about the Mega Lace ones. They were okay. I think they're just a more affordable Mega Lace boot. So like people that I guess couldn't afford the Mega Lace could buy into the same sort of design for a cheaper price with the Dr. Martens collab. Not saying it's a good or bad thing, it's just kind of what it is. Um Favorite black, the color designer, why Yohji Yamamoto? Yohji Yamamoto is not my favorite designer, but he is one of. And so my favorite designers are also happen to be the designers I wear the most, which is kind of strange. Because I can't fit into many brands. The only brands that I know of that I can fit into comfortably, like everything they make, is Yoji, Andy, and Rick Owens. And those happen to be my favorite designers as well, which is so strange. Like there's so many brands I can't fit into, like physically. I can't fit into like Saint Laurent. It's too small. Everything's too small. Balenciaga on the upper body stuff I can fit into, but any trousers I can't. They're too tiny. Gucci too tiny, Celine too tiny, Louis Vuitton too tiny, like a lot of brands, Bottega too small. So it's kind of weird that my favorite designers are the ones that I can fit into. It's so strange. Said, I feel like that's people on the internet in general. To be honest, nobody wants to listen. Just was just obsessed with being right and appearing knowledgeable. Yeah, it's so weird. He said I can do a PhD on tabbies. Yeah, but if I was to really go deep into tabbies, first I'd have to talk about the Japanese influences, which is a whole story in itself, like the cultural meaning of like the shape. Then we would have to go into like how Margiela used it, why it was crazy at the time, what makes it polarizing, why it's still big now. Yeah, that's a whole video. There's people that are more knowledgeable about Margiela than myself that will be better suited to making such a video. Um, have you ever watched Fernandali's videos? Her channel is really great and just did a good lookbook styling video. I know you've been looking for that. I've never heard of that channel, but I'm gonna check now. Is it Fernandali or is it Fernanda something? Anyway, yeah, I just subscribed to the channel, so I'll check it out after. Oh, Gucci Balenciaga collaboration. I made a whole video about this. So yeah. Who are some designers who you would want to meet or have met? Well, I haven't met a lot of designers to start with, so there's a lot of designers I'd like to meet. The only people I've met in person, I've met Samuel Ross in person. He's a nice guy. I've met Kim Jones in person. I've met Ray Kawakubo in person. And I think that's it as far as designers go. I haven't met Andy, who's my favorite designer. I've met Matthew Williams before, actually. Um, yeah, I don't know. So a lot of designers are like for me to meet is very unlikely. Like Andy, for example, she's like a ghost. Like I'm probably never gonna meet her, and she hates doing interviews. So yeah. Said, I really appreciate you get on live and talking to your fans. I don't know why. The word fans makes me cringe because when I think of like the word fans, I think of someone who's actually famous. So someone like Chris Brown or like Justin Bieber, like they have fans. I think I just have like subscribers, which is basically people watch my videos because they either want to disagree, they want to discuss what I talk about, or they just like listening to what I talk about, like the subject matter. So I don't really think that's a fan. Like I'm not if I turn up somewhere to like a fashion event, people aren't gonna scream like, oh my god, the fashion art guy. So I don't know. I don't have fans. But yeah, I appreciate what you're saying though. A lot of YouTubers don't live stream, which is true. And I don't know why actually, because it's like it's just chill. I get to just answer questions and discuss stuff. Have you ever seen the cultural appropriation debate around tabbies? No, I haven't. But I could understand why there would probably be the debate, but it's not really a debate for me to really talk about, to be honest, because it has nothing to do with me. Will you ever do a meetup real life version of these lives? So it's good you brought this up. So I did a meetup in London years ago. Years ago, when I hit 10,000 subscribers, I did a London meetup, and when I did the meetup, I was like handing out free tote bags, which was fun. And how many people turned up? About 20 people turned up, and I don't know why I never had the idea. I think actually I know why. COVID. That's why I never had the idea to like do it again. Um, but because I'm going to Antwerp, I was gonna do a meetup in Antwerp. But then again, I don't know how many people that watch me are actually from Antwerp. There probably won't be that many. Most of my audience is American or British. So I should probably do another meetup in London. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. And we need to do it soon before like winter starts and everywhere's dark and cold. Racism and homophobia is why Shane Oliver Hoodbyer didn't get as popular. I can agree. I can agree. I can agree with that. It's not why he didn't get as popular. He was just way too ahead of his time. Yeah, I agree. But so one thing I don't like about fashion is like fashion sometimes, not all the time, of course, nothing is like absolute, but a lot of the time, fashion is run by narratives. So how good a designer is seen by most people is determined by like some famous journalist who's like, this person is like the greatest person since Coco Chanel, and then everyone just believes them, and then it becomes a narrative that that person's really good, and then they start making t-shirts. But because their narrative is like, oh, they're such a good designer, they start making t-shirts, and people just like over conceptualize it. And then there are designers who actually do make really, really good stuff, because they haven't been given that, what's the right word to use, they haven't been given that like rite of passage by the gatekeepers in fashion, like the big publications and the big figures in fashion. So they're seen as like not good. So I don't think it's ahead of their time. I just think the narrative didn't steer towards Hood by Air, and that's partially because of homophobia, partially because people just have a hard time understanding that black people don't just have to design. Like, okay, let me give you a good example. Moa Lola did an interview recently, and there were people that reviewed one of her collections where there was like a bullet hole, and everyone assumed that it must have been a reference to police brutality or something like that, because black designer, bullet hole in a jacket. And she came out in an interview and she said, actually the reference for it was just, it was to express the trauma that I'd been through relationships, and like when she went through her last breakup, it felt like someone shot her in the chest, right? And she was like, I'm just a designer, I can like express myself how I want. People don't always have to like come to conclusions that it's about police brutality just because it's a bullet and I'm black. And that kind of happens. Like people, I don't think people realize that they do it, but they do it, which is so funny. How do you feel like you're going to elevate yourself to Tim Blanks or Susie Menke's level rather than just appealing to the 16 to 14-year-old? I've been into CCP. I don't really feel like I need to elevate or not elevate myself. I kind of exist in two spaces at once. So I work as a journalist in fashion. At the same time, I like have a YouTube channel, and the stuff that I write about versus stuff I make videos about are two like totally different things. So I feel like I have almost like two different audiences. Like there are people who I get messages on Instagram and people don't even realize that I have a YouTube channel. They're like, "Oh, I like read your article on BOF. I didn't even know like you have a YouTube channel." So I'm not really fussed about elevating myself or how I'm seen by anyone. Like people will think what they want to think. That's not really for me to try and live up to. How did I find Tebe Magugu? Um, I always, anytime like the Paris Fashion Week schedule or the Milan schedule or the London schedule, New York schedule, Copenhagen schedule, I normally just read through it to see if there are any new brands that I haven't heard of before. And then if I think of like, I see a brand that I've never heard of before, I haven't seen, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting name. I like go and check out and do research on the brand. So I remember Tebe was showing, I think it was at South Africa Fashion Week. And I normally check South African Fashion Week as well. And I was like, oh, this stuff looks interesting. And then I looked into it. And then from there, I was just kind of like hooked on his work. And I've like followed his work since. How was meeting Ray Kubo? It was good and bad because obviously so where I met her was at Dover Street Market in London. So considering she owns the place, she was probably there for some business, and I'm just this random kid. How old was I then? I was like 14 or maybe 15. This like random kid who was like, "Oh my God, Reiko Kubo, I love your work." And I'm not sure if she speaks good English or not, but she didn't say anything back. She kind of just like nodded her head, and then she like did that, and I like didn't really know what to do. And I kind of just smiled and then walked away. It was so weird. It was so weird. But I'm still a big fan of her though. What do I think of Galliano's work at Margiela? I do think it's really good. I do like it. Why do people hate on Bliss Foster? He seems to make really good videos, but people just don't take him seriously at all. Really? People don't take Bliss Foster seriously? Interesting. Interesting. He said, Andy lives in a suburb next to you. Really? That's amazing. That's amazing. Going back to that person, I don't think, as far as I know, I think people take Bliss Foster seriously, from what I know, at least. Are there any ideas for a certain piece but hated? I don't really understand this question, to be honest. Okay, people are replying to me going on a tirade about how I don't have fans. I see myself as your supporter. Exactly. I think I've read 2 Andy interviews in my life. She's incognito. Yeah, so I'm gonna post a video probably tomorrow on Patreon, and it's a story about how I almost interviewed Andy. So on Patreon, I'm gonna like talk more about that. It's an interesting story, actually. Someone said I'm gonna create the Fashion Archive stand Twitter account. What is my favorite thing about Bottega Veneta? So I'm making a video about this. So actually, I won't answer this now. I'll answer it in the video. How expensive is London? Would you consider moving anywhere else? So London is super expensive. I've kind of lived here my whole life and I was born here. So I don't really know any different. Even though London's expensive, when you've lived here your whole life, it's like normal. It's not until you start going to different parts of like even in England or different parts of the world and you're like, wow, everywhere else is so much cheaper. So for me, it's actually like quite normal. So I don't think I'd consider moving anywhere else. I think for me, London is like my comfort zone, to be honest. Have I ever been to an Antwerp sample sale? No, I haven't. And I'm kind of pissed off because they're really good. They normally have like Dries. I know a lot of people go there for Andy, Dries Van Noten, um, Heider Ackerman. Right, someone asked me a question. Do you think it's best to go to school in London for fashion or other places in the UK good? So all the best fashion schools in the UK are actually in London, outside of UCA, which and UCA is basically in London, really, because UCA they have two campuses. One is in Rochester, which is in Kent, which is right beside London, and another one is in Epsom, which is in Surrey, which is also right beside London. And I know that that school's having financial difficulties, so they're closing down their Rochester campus, and they're only going to be in Epsom. But the rest, RCA, LCF, CSM, Westminster, Goldsmiths, like all the other good fashion schools, they're all in London, to be fair. So if you're going to go to fashion school in at least the UK, I'd suggest going to London. And then also, all the fashion events happen in London. Fashion Week happens in London. The fashion community is in London. Most of the fashion jobs are in London. So, to be honest, if you're going to be in the UK, you might as well just stay in London if you want to work in fashion at least. Love my videos, but where can I see your journals or can I? So right now I work for BOF as a writer, like the business of fashion. Um, and BOF articles are kind of behind a paywall, so I don't know what I can do about that. But I am planning to start writing more on my website so people can read like my stuff there. So that's something that's coming soon. I do have a few articles on my website though that you can read. So my website is thefashionarchivemag.com. So if you check that out, I have a few articles on there. There's one about Tebe, about Vogue, about there's one about Telfar. There's a few. Most exciting slash highly anticipated designer in London. Wow, there's a lot. I don't think there's one. Yeah, there's a lot. Whether we're talking about like Paria Farzaneh or Stefan Cook or Pierre Gotterson. There's a lot. I can't really think of one. Thoughts on TikTok fashion digital cowboy controversy? I know who Digital Cowboy is on Instagram. I don't really catch the controversy, to be honest, and I'm not really on TikTok. I only started really going on TikTok like a week ago, and I found one really good account on TikTok called Fashion Boy. And he makes quite good content. I don't know, making fashion content on TikTok is really weird, like the type of content I make, because Fashion Boy, from what I've seen so far, makes the best like fashion history content on TikTok. But even when he talks, he has to talk so quickly to fit all the information in like the little 1 minute time frame that TikTok allows. So he's like, welcome to the TikTok. And today we're talking about the history of Chanel and Coco Chanel, Gabrielle Coco Chanel. She was someone that made, and it's just like, wow, how do I even follow this? Okay. Let me follow the questions. Feelings on Y Project. I like Y Project. I think in more recent collections, they have been a bit like it was innovative for so many years, and then it's kind of hit a stalemate for the past 2 seasons. But generally, I like Y Project. I would definitely wear the clothing if it fit me, but it doesn't. But I do like Y Project. I like what Glenn Martins does, and I like to listen to him. Like I was listening to him on a podcast. It's called The Most, and he was kind of talking about his how he just came up in fashion and going to the Royal Academy of Arts in Antwerp and all that sort of stuff. It was quite interesting. Thoughts on Bianca Saunders? So I don't have thoughts. I know Bianca Saunders is an emerging designer in London. I've known who she is. You can't be in the London fashion scene and not know who she is. I know she's won awards recently, but I have not actually looked deeply into her work, like what the references are, what her aesthetic is. So I can't give you an opinion that makes sense. But I know who she is. From what I've seen, it looks good, but I can't really. That's not really like a valuable opinion, to be honest. I meant, did you like the idea or story behind a certain piece, but the execution or quality is bad? Sorry that I messed up the question. Yes, so a lot of brands, like Heider Ackerman, for example, there were a lot of pieces that I like, but the quality has gone downhill. Even on, in fact, Andy, which is my favorite brand, is a perfect example because Andy, and this is why Antonioli bought the brand, they were going through, under Sebastian Munier, they were going through a lot of financial difficulties. And what started to happen was the quality started to really go down. So I love like the inspiration to the collection. I love like the Spring Summer 21 collection, amazing. Spring Summer 20, Antwerp Docks. I like the collection that was inspired by Ninjinsky. I think that was that, what season was that? I can't remember what season that was, but all those pieces, the inspiration was amazing, but the quality, I wouldn't buy the clothes. I just like appreciate the artistic merit of it, but I wouldn't buy it because I'm not going to spend £1,000 on like a mediocre jacket just because I like the inspiration point. It's just not going to happen. Like I'm not rich. I can't afford to do that. Maybe if I was rich, I would do that, but not right now. What do I think is missing in the fashion industry? I think authenticity and integrity, and not for journalists, definitely, but it's just like it's kind of hard to know what's a credible source anymore. Like a good example is, so my last video was on the new Vetements brand, right? And when I was doing research for it, I read the Vogue review on it, and the Vogue review on it was so bad. I was just like, it's either Guram paid this journalist off, or they have so much vested money in Vogue that they can't possibly write anything like negative. Because they were trying to make a case for why it's like better than Vetements when they changed the brand name because they couldn't get the legal rights for it. That's one of the reasons. And then two, because Guram didn't want to be in like Demna's shadow, and people just say that, oh, Vetements died since Demna left, and Guram can't like keep up to the same standard. And that's really why he made a new brand. It's not because he wanted to make this amazing new brand that's gonna like revolutionize the industry. And that's kind of how they made it seem. It's just like, yeah, and integrity in terms of like designers and stuff, but that's a whole different story. I'm interested in getting into fashion PR. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on if it's a relevant field of work in the industry. If you're talking about money wise, like as a career, it's relevant if you have good clients, which is very hard to get because most of the good clients go to the big PR companies. So, yeah, I don't know. Is it pointless to go to a small college for fashion? In the UK, it is because in the UK, you pay the same fees regardless of what school you go to. So if you're going to pay the same money that you pay to go to CSM, Westminster, like the good schools like CSM, Westminster, LCF, why would you pay that same money to go to some like unknown school and do the fashion course in like somewhere in like a random place in the UK? It just doesn't really make much sense. Um, so in my opinion, in the UK, it is pointless to go to a small college for fashion. As far as other countries, I can't really say because I know like fees in somewhere like America, it varies vastly. So I can't really speak on outside. Thoughts on Wisdom K? Wisdom is the TikTok guy, right? Um, I think he has a cool style. It's not. It's the way he dresses. He dresses like how people used to dress in 2015, and they were considered fashionable. But he wears. He has a very. He's very versatile with his style, which I like. So he has a vast array of things that he wears, whether it's the Sanjeev style, that what Sanjeev used to wear, like the whole Saint Laurent Paris boots with skinny jeans and like a beach shirt. That was like literally what Sanjeev used to wear in 2016. So I think Wisdom is like a good entry point to like not avant-garde, but like a good entry point to like fashion that isn't hashtag menswear. Because I think for the most part, a lot of menswear creators that get big are very hashtag menswear. So they wear things like suits and they wear common projects and that sort of stuff. And I think Wisdom was the first person to get a following on the level of those hashtag menswear guys. So he's sort of introducing men. And when I say men, not the type of people that are subscribed to this channel, but in a broader spectrum to a more diverse aesthetic. So I do like that about him. So yeah, I'm a fan of what he does, basically. Thoughts on recent Martine Rose? I'm a fan of Martine Rose actually, but I haven't been a fan of like what she's been producing recently. Honestly, I just haven't. So yeah, quick thoughts. What is life at CSM like? I mean, I was only there for 1 year, and it wasn't really what being at CSM is really like because it was COVID, and that meant that we only went into school 2 days a week, and it also meant that when we did go into school, like we all had times when we were allowed to go to school. We couldn't just like go to school every day unless you were going to the library. So a lot of people weren't even at school at one time. The school was empty most of the time. So it's not the CSM experience where you see people wear crazy outfits, the drama that happens, the crazy stories that you hear in the library, like all that sort of stuff. I didn't really experience that. But in terms of like academics, it was really good. It academically, it was everything I expected and more. Like I've learned significant stuff at CSM. My top three fashion houses. Auntie Minimaster, Yoji Yamamoto, and then tied third is between Rick Owens and Isabel Bonanato. That's just my personal like fashion houses that I like. Yeah, this is true. For those interested, BOF offers free subscriptions for students. That's true. If you have like a university email, then you can sign up to BOF for free and read my articles. So yeah. Personal grail pieces. So when I was younger, oh, this is gonna get so deep when it doesn't really need to. Like when I was younger, I used to like be obsessed with grails. Like there'll be pieces that I was like, I just have to have those. And I think as I've gotten older, I just can't be bothered to like stress myself out. So there's pieces that I really want. Like there's some Andy shirts that I've really wanted. Even the Vitello boots, the fall winter 2014 ones that I ended up buying. If Andy Millermeister, like the house, didn't re-release it, I don't think I would have been that fussed. There would have been something new that would have released that I would have liked. And there's always things releasing. So for example, the Margiela loafers that I do have, um, they came out last season, and I remember like I really wanted them. I think it was like over a year ago, and I just couldn't afford them at the time. And then I was a grail for a while, and then I kind of forgot about it. I was like, there's no point stressing myself out. And then I was just scrolling through Ukes the other day, and then I saw it, and it was only in my size, and then I bought it. So I don't really have grails. I have pieces that I do like, and then if I see them in passing, I might buy them. But I don't have like, there's no piece that I really, really want and I must really buy. Starts Ballet. I haven't really followed Starts Ballet to be honest. So yeah. Let's see. Thoughts on Y's, ground Y. Okay, so those are the diffusion lines of Yoji. I think all Yoji lines are kind of all similar anyway. They all have a very similar aesthetic. And Yoji Yamamoto, I don't even know how many diffusion lines he has at this point. He has so many. I can't tell you every single one because there's just so many. But I think they all have the same sort of like flowy, unisex, like aesthetic. So it's not really I don't really have thoughts about that. It's just the Yoji look. If I'm in Antwerp, we need to link up someday. Yes. So I will be in Antwerp between the 20th to the 25th. So between those dates, if you message me, I will be exploring Antwerp as much as possible. I will literally be everywhere because I've never been to Antwerp before. So it will be a lot of fun. I'm going around the city. And I should probably practice my Dutch. I think in Antwerp, do they speak Dutch or French? I think it's Flemish. So I think they speak Dutch. Yeah. I'm convinced they speak Dutch. I mean, to get a review on Vogue, you've got to pay for it. So they're all just bullshit trying to please the brand, no real opinions. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Thoughts on Elliot and Mill? I haven't really looked into it too deeply. What my perception of what Elliot and Mill is like utilitarian wear. It kind of looks like tech wear, but I don't think it really is tech wear, but it has that sort of aesthetic. Like futurist sort of design. So I don't once again, I haven't really looked into this brand. The reason why I don't have a lot of opinions on these new brands actually is because when I went to CSM in the first year, most of the stuff that we get tested on and we have to write essays on is like fashion history. So I've had to kind of take myself away from what's happening recently, and I really don't have many opinions. And all I've done, especially this holiday, is really try to learn more about fashion history because I know going back to school is going to be tough. And there's a lot of things that I didn't know in first year that now I do know. So I just don't have many opinions on a lot of recent brands. Like, I know what Elliot Mill is. I have friends that buy the brand, but I don't have a detailed opinion. Did I apply to any unis other than CSM? Yes. So when I decided I wanted to study fashion journalism, I applied to CSM, I applied to Westminster, I applied to Goldsmiths, I applied to UEL, which is University of East London. And where was the last place I applied to? I can't remember the last place I applied to, but I did get offers from like every school. And I was deciding between UCA and CSM for a really long time. And then I eventually just decided that CSM would be better. The reason why I was deciding was because the staff to student ratio at UCA is like better. Also, some of the people that teach at UAL also teach at UCA anyway. And they kind of have similar facilities. The reason why I went with CSM over UCA was because one, the library, because the library is like amazing at CSM. It's like so good. And then two, there were certain people I knew that were going to be in and around at the same time. And I thought for networking purposes, it was good if I went to CSM. So that's why I did go. But it wasn't like it was always, oh, it's CSM or nothing. It wasn't really like that. Do you think Off-White is dead? Not a fan of the brand, just wondering. Off-White is just a brand I never really cared about or cared for. So I couldn't really tell you if it's dead or not because I don't really follow the brand. That sounds really bad. But it's true. It's just me being honest. What do you recommend for people who want to get into fashion industry? Probably study something in fashion. It depends though, because when you say get into the fashion industry, and I get this question a lot, the problem is fashion is so vast. Like you can be a fashion journalist, you can be a seamstress, you can be a designer, you can be head of jewelry design, you could be like you could literally just be a jewelry designer, you could be a pattern maker, you could be a marketing person, you could be fashion PR, you can be a fashion stylist, fashion photographer. So I can't just tell you how to get into the fashion industry because it's like, what do you like? Like what part of fashion interests you the most? You've been talking about how the quality of Andes has gone down. I recently bought the Alec and I quite like the quality in them. What are you talking about the years? Yes, I'm talking about before 2021. So after Antonioli bought the brand, which was last year, they like improved the quality again. And it was something that was really important to them. Oh, my battery's about to run out. Quickly plug in the charger. So yeah, if you bought it in 2021, the quality should be good because Antonielli bought the brand. So when I say the quality has gone down, I'm talking more between like 2017 to 2020. But yeah, now the quality is amazing. If you buy stuff now, it's really good. Let's see. Have I got suggestions on getting featured in magazines? You mean as like a designer or like, what do you mean? Did you see the hype reality HBO streetwear reality? I didn't. We don't have HBO in the UK. So yeah. What do you think about the junior? So many people have asked me about the whole Donda thing. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm not up to date with what's been going on with the Donda situation. I really don't know. I haven't been following. Not that I don't want to. I've been busy. Like there's an article. I literally have a deadline for BOF in like a few days. So and I have like meetings and stuff. So I just haven't had the time. So yeah. Okay, someone said they speak Dutch in Antwerp. Okay, yes, so I was right. See, I know my geography, guys. I know my I'm cultured. I'm cultured. How do you feel about the state of Y3? Still have my Kazas. Oh my god. I used to have Kaza highs. Oh my god, you're bringing me back. Let me see if I can find a picture on my laptop that I can show you of me wearing Kaza highs like back in the day. I love those shoes. If I could buy like a good pair, I would actually buy one because I used to love those shoes. But I don't think Y3 has gone down. If anything, I think it's gotten better because so I work for this store called the Allotment Store. And in the Allotment Store, they started stocking Y3. And actually, Y3 has gone from like a very tech wear looking brand to now it's just like a cheaper Yoji. So they make very similar silhouettes to Yoji and then they just put Y3 on it and then they use like cheaper fabrics. So you can kind of get a Yoji look now with Y3, which wasn't the case before. So I don't know. I don't feel bad about like where Y3 has gone, to be honest. But then again, that's because I like the Yoji aesthetic. What do I think is more authentic than Vogue in terms of authentic, credible fashion journalism? There are some really good fashion YouTubers who do a lot of good research. And they're definitely more credible than like a Vogue because the problem with Vogue is like even though they're formally trained, their opinions are just like bought. So they never really say how they feel or like what they should say. They just say like they make everything positive, even if it shouldn't be. So yeah, I think BOF is really good. BOF is not really an opinion-based publication, though, unless you read articles by Tim Blanks. BOF, it's a reporting sort of publication. So when I write for BOF, for example, my bosses, because I have two bosses, when I write and they edit my writing, one thing that they try to get me to stop doing, which is something I'm learning as I go, is I kind of tend to use superlatives a lot. And when you use that kind of language, it makes it come across like you're praising a designer, which as a journalist, you shouldn't. You should either be neutral or just you should like present the information. You shouldn't really give one opinion or the other. So that sort of stuff is like for my YouTube channel when I'm giving opinions. But if you're doing non-biased journalism like BOF, then yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. So BOF is a good source. If you want really, really well-researched, opinion-based stuff, I don't really follow publications. I follow journalists because journalists go to different publications. So I read articles by people like Vanessa Friedman, Alexander Fury, Tim Blanks, Kathy Horan sometimes. Sometimes I agree with her, sometimes I don't. Robin Gavan, she's at the Washington Post. Vanessa Friedman is at the New York Times. Alexander Fury is at another mag, and the Financial Times, I think. And who else did I mention? Tim Blanks is at BOF and many other places. But yeah, those are the main journalists that I read the articles like on a daily basis. Where did I do my foundation year? I didn't do a foundation year. I just entered CSM in first year. Do you have any advice for people who aren't sure what to do career-wise with their life? What's helped you? So okay, so the reason why I kind of found out that I wanted to do fashion journalism was because I worked in so many jobs in fashion and started to realize what aspects I'm good at, what aspects I'm not good at, what stuff I like doing and what stuff I don't. So I think you kind of just need to do different things and find yourself. I think it's kind of crazy that the educational system expects you to like know what you want to be at the age of 18. Like when I look at it in hindsight, I think 18 is like too young to know to make a decision on like what school you should go to and like what you're going to study at university or college for Americans. Yeah, I just think it's too early. So I think you just need to do different roles, especially if you want to work in fashion, do different roles and kind of eventually find what you like. What would you do with your degree besides developing your magazine? So I want to be a journalist in fashion. It's kind of what I already do now anyway. So I just want to continue that. So I always want to be like a journalist who also has his own thing. So if you guys know what's her name? Rotfeld, the woman who was editor-in-chief of Vogue Paris. So she has CR Fashion Book, and she used to be editor-in-chief of Vogue Paris. So she's kind of done loads of different side projects, but she's also been an editor at a major publication, and like she's doing all these different things. That's kind of like where I want to go. So yeah, I'm not just going to only do my magazine or only do YouTube. I kind of want to have my foot in everything. Are Dr. Martens considered expensive in the UK because where I live, they cost 2 times the minimum wage? Yeah, I think generally Dr. Martens are considered expensive. Like the loafers I bought, I think were £110. And relatively, as far as like price of shoes go, that is quite expensive. If you buy a lot of like Rick Owens and Margiela, you kind of think it's cheap, but it really isn't. £110 for a pair of shoes is still kind of expensive, not gonna lie. I'd like to go back to uni, study education, and become a fashion school teacher. That's amazing. That's so cool. Someone mentioned Women's Wear Daily. Yeah, Holly Gray said Women's Wear Daily. Women's Wear Daily is good, a good source for fashion. Thoughts on HBO show The Hype? A lot of people have asked me about this. I think this is the second show. I haven't seen it. I don't even know what it's about, but I've written it down, so I'll watch it. What is it about though? It says, let me see the description. A competition series in which contestants battle to design authentic streetwear fashion. Interesting. What does authentic streetwear fashion mean though? What is your opinion on the future in terms of relations between the influencers and luxury fashion brands? I don't think it's going to change. I think luxury brands are just going to continue to pay influencers to wear their stuff, and influencers are going to continue lying that they like certain things that they don't because they get paid a lot to do that. Yeah, I don't think it's going to change much, to be honest. What medium best allows me to express myself? Definitely YouTube. If you're talking about like mediums like writing, YouTube, yeah, I think YouTube does allow me to express myself the best. So yeah, that's what I would say. Oh my god. I'm just looking at this Donda. I'm gonna have to do research into the whole Donda shebang because I've gotten so many questions on it, and I feel bad for not knowing anything about it. Oh my god. Anyway, back to the questions. Why did I stop? Luxury, TikTok. Okay. What do you think about Edith Head? Anyone on par with her excellence nowadays in terms of marking the aesthetics of today? Edith Head. Edith Head is if I'm not mistaken, Edith Head is like the American costume designer, right? I don't really know too much about Edith Head, to be honest. So I can't really answer that question. I know, once again, just because I know who designers are, doesn't mean that I know in depth like how they mark the aesthetic of a time. And I don't lie. So I'm not going to tell you, yes, Edith Head. So I really don't know. So I can't give you an educated opinion on that. Do you think fashion school is needed to get into the fashion industry? No, it's not. It's not, but it helps. Especially if you go to a major school. Just saying. Can you recommend me some books on the history of sustainable fashion? I personally don't know any book on the history of sustainable fashion. What I can tell you about, though, because I did research into some of these books for what's it? Some videos I've made. There are really good books on World War II, like the war times, World War One and World War II, and they talk about like how the way fashion was being produced changed over the years, which kind of ties into sustainability because it also talks about how mass consumption came into play, things like that. And also, there's a lot of marketing books that do talk about it, but I haven't actually read a all-encompassing book on sustainability personally. So I don't know if that book even exists. Oh, sizing, yes. Andy is like notorious for terrible sizing. Like on a Monday, I can fit in an Andy UK 9, and on a Tuesday, I fit in an Andy UK 15. It makes no sense. My Andy sweaters, I have sweaters sizes ranging from medium to XL, and they all fit the same. So I don't know who does the labels at Andy. It's almost like they just get any random label and they sew it to a random sweater. It makes no sense. Whoever does the labels at Andy needs to be fired, like ASAP. What do you think about the recent Celine collections? After the massive switch in style, the Dance Kid collection ideas kind of mellowed out of the odds TikTok. Yeah, because he had the collection that was Teen Night Poem, right? And that was kind of mellow. It's kind of similar to what he first started doing at Celine, which was kind of like the rocker aesthetic with French chic mixed. Um, so yeah, I kind of like what he's doing now. I've always kind of liked Adi Simon's aesthetic anyway. I just can't fit in it. But honestly, I do like what he makes. Even the whole TikTok thing, I appreciated it for sort of him just looking at what the current zeitgeist was and making a whole collection about it. I can see why people think it's cringy because it's the now, but I think when we look back and we're like, oh, that was an interesting time. Like he made a collection that was reflecting the times. I think it's gonna age better, honestly. Dazed is not great. Well, okay, Dazed online is not good at all. Dazed the magazine is really good, especially now that Ibrahim Kamara is there. So if you're gonna read Dazed, I'd say buy the magazines and read it that way. But the online articles are horrendous. So yeah, stay away from the website. Yes, Rachel. Rachel is journalist at GQ. She's really good. I like what she does. Rachel's a good journalist to check out, guys, by the way. She writes for GQ. So that was a good suggestion. I'm 30 and I realize I want to get into fashion. I'm still not sure how to get. I'm guessing you meant I'm still not sure how to get into fashion, but I know that I want to do. Any tips? Sometimes I feel too old. It's never too late. Is the first thing I'll say. There's many designers who don't even start like working in fashion until they're like 40, literally. But once again, I can't answer this question because it's like what fashion is broad. It's a really broad industry. Like, what part of fashion do you want to get into? Yeah, Karine Rotfeld. Yeah, I don't know why I can't remember her name because she's like really famous. But hey, yeah, I'm working on buying. I'm working on buying at the moment, but I already feel like it might not be for me. I'm still questioning if fashion itself is for me, but maybe I just need to keep trying different things. Yeah, buying is good because it's commercially it's a good thing. Like there's a lot of money if you work in buying, which is good because in fashion, not many people make a lot of money from working in fashion. A lot of people have to slave away. Even I have to think hard and deep of how, like, fashion being my passion, I'm going to turn it into a sustainable career, which it definitely isn't right now. Like, I definitely have, yes, I work for BOF, but I also have other jobs that I have to do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to pay my bills. So, yeah. So to always read, always look at fashion from both ends, high street and everything between. Yeah, yeah. Is Kingston School of Art good for fashion? Mm, when you say good for fashion, comparatively to a lot of other schools in London, like Westminster, Goldsmiths, LCF, CSM, RCA, not really. But it isn't a bad school though. It isn't bad. I'll definitely tell you that. Kingston is definitely not a bad school as far as art and fashion goes. Can you become a millionaire after fashion school? Anything's possible. You can become a millionaire, I guess, if you start a fashion brand and you sell, I don't know, 10,000 units. You could become a millionaire. I don't know. I don't think that should be your goal. I guess different people's ideas of success is different. Like to some people, being rich is like being a millionaire. To me, as far as like in the sphere of like the UK and England, I see anyone that earns over £200,000 a year as like really rich. Because to me, if you earn £200,000 a year or more, you can literally within reason buy anything you want. And me personally, I don't have an expensive taste. Like I'm never that. Even if I became a billionaire today, I wouldn't like buy private jets. I just don't really care about stuff like that, or like jewelry, diamond rings that cost 1 million. I just care about definitely cars, and I care about like getting a really nice house. So I think if I got really rich, I'd buy a house in the center of London, and then I'll buy a really nice car, and then after that, the novelty would wear off. And I feel like when you earn £200,000 a year, you can do that anyway. So yeah, I don't think your goal should be like I have to be a millionaire. I don't know. It's good to be ambitious, but I don't know. What do you feel like, despite being too cliche, is the best way to start making fashion content on YouTube? In the same way, maybe to your content, Hotland Mode, aka a bit more info heavy stuff. I think it depends. What I will tell you though, if you are a male person, it's not going to be as easy. I don't know why it's like this. I just think personally, more women are into fashion than men are into fashion, which is quite obvious. So if you're a content creator and you're a woman and you start making the type of content I make, I feel like you'd get popular very quickly. If you're a guy, you're gonna have to try a bit harder. So I'd say best way to start making content, honestly, is to just start. The worst thing that you can do is keep procrastinating. I think you just start posting videos about stuff that you're interested about, and you'll over time you'll start to build an audience. It definitely isn't easy. I had to post every week for like 2 years before my audience got big enough to where I didn't have to do that, and now I can just like post whenever. So it's hard if you want to build an audience. It's not easy. I don't think anything good is easy, but if you're passionate about it, it's not really difficult. Like I don't really feel like it was difficult because I enjoyed doing a lot of research for videos and reading for videos and making videos and talking to like-minded people about fashion and meeting people through my channel. All of that is fun to me, so it wasn't really like a job or a chore or anything like that. Do I like John Alexander Skelton? I love that brand. I love actually the fabrics that he uses. The fabrics are amazing. The aesthetic is almost like it's like Andy adjacent. If Andy used more white, that's basically what it would be. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely a fan of the brand. When was the last time I saw? There was an event. What was it called? What was it called in London where there were a lot of John Alexander clothes, and I like got to feel the fabrics and stuff, and it's really good. What was it called again? It was this like gallery. It was almost like an exhibition, and John Alexander Skelton was there. Bianca Saunders was there. Who else was there? Craig Green was there. Um, Stefan Cook was there. It's totally skipped my mind, but anyway, yeah. Do I like any brands like Acronym? Yeah, I like Acronym. I like Acronym. Any menswear designer slash labels? I wouldn't say look up to because I'm not a designer, so there's not really. I couldn't really look up to. I look up to more like people that do my job, like journalists. But in terms of like menswear fashion designers, I like Martine Rose. Although recent collections I haven't really been a fan of, but generally I do like her work. Rick Owens, menswear, amazing. Who else is Tebe Magugu just started menswear, but I did like his first menswear collection. Who else do I like that does menswear? John Galliano. Well, those people don't really like John Galliano doesn't set out to do menswear, but a lot of the stuff he makes is unisex, so I just see it as menswear. I don't know. I look at more unisex stuff than I do look at menswear stuff because a lot of menswear stuff is boring. Unless we're talking about what I do like is Ras Simmons Prada, like Mucha Prada and Ras Simmons, their menswear. I do like that. Also, actually, I like Kim Jones, Dior menswear. I really like what he's doing there. What are some good fashion journalists to read apart from you? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for calling me a good journalist, even though I just started my journalism career. So I just said, I mentioned earlier, Vanessa Friedman, Alexander Fury, Tim Blanks, Roman Gavan. Who else do I read? Kathy Horan. I'd say stick with that for now. If I remember more, I'll let you know. I do kind of feel like we're talking about the same things we're talking about in our first lives at the start of COVID. Yeah, I agree. I think, do you know what it is? I think because my YouTube channel, every time I do a live, there are people who probably haven't seen me do a live before, so they haven't been able to ask me these questions. So then I end up getting asked the same questions over and over again. I think I'm kind of used to it. I'm honestly kind of used to it, to be honest. How do you find entire lookbooks of old collections? I've been trying to research more about Jean-Paul Gaultier, Autumn Winter 03, but I want to see the entire thing. You have to buy stuff. Most of it. So before the like Vogue runway and all these things, how people used to see entire lookbooks were you would buy them in like magazine stores. You'd have to buy like a literal lookbook of a brand. And so these kind of things now, they all exist on places like eBay. and they're cheap, like really cheap. People are just trying to get rid of them. So some of them you can get for like 99p. It's probably like $1 and a few cents. So honestly, just go on eBay, search Facebook forums. Like you just have to do some digging. Any tips on a graduate switching into fashion journalism and any key skills, knowledge, resources you think I'd need as a starter? Is it important to focus on the history first or the now? In my opinion, and this is also advice I've gotten from my lecturers and stuff, it's better to know about history, and I'll tell you why. The reason why it's better to know about history is to, especially as a fashion journalist, actually, why you should focus on history first before you focus on the now. So the first reason is that the past kind of influences what happens now. So most of the things that designers do now, like for example, you can't really appreciate what Rick Owens does unless you know about the work of Madeleine Vionnet. You can't really appreciate, like for example, how would you understand what Demna is doing at Balenciaga if you don't know a lot about the house? So like there's so many things you can't put into context. Like for example, Daniel Roseberry is kind of bringing back Schiaparelli. How will you be able to contextualize like how well Daniel Roseberry is bringing back Schiaparelli if you don't know anything about the brand? So it's really how will you? Yeah, it's just. And then also music intersects with fashion, so it's good to know about cultural things that happen, like knowing about the 20s or like knowing who Josephine Baker is and like all those type of things. Really, really important because all those things, when you're a journalist, you're going to have to write about now, and most times there'll be ways that you can use your knowledge of the past to kind of inform how you write about the present. So it's always more important. And also the second reason is just the information is less available. So it's better to go and learn about history where the information is less available and really dive into it. So that because now when people make stuff, there's so much misinformation. So it's really good if you go with a very good knowledge base that's rooted in like proper factual evidence rather than consuming like current content where they say wrong stuff about the past. So if I was you personally, I'd say if you want to be a fashion journalist, apart from learning about things that just naturally interest you, I think in a general sense, I think it's more important to learn about things that have happened in the past before you look at stuff that's happened in the future. And I'm still like, honestly, there is so much to learn in fashion history. It's unbelievable. So I recently, so I did a deep dive on Balenciaga's work over the past month. This holiday, I've also read about Schiaparelli slightly. I've read about Vionnet slightly. I've read about Poiret slightly. I've read about fashion books that's to do with like World War One and World War Two. I've read about Dior. Who else have I read about? That's kind of my reading for this whole like summer holiday. And if I tell you the amount of things I need to read, so there's a book I have that's called Fashion on Jazz, and it's all about like how jazz influences fashion and things like the zoot suits and the history of it, how it's influenced designers now. Haven't read it yet, need to read it. There's a book I need to read about Charles James. I'm not sure how many people know who like Charles James is, like a really, really famous and amazing couturier and dressmaker. Yet to read a lot about Charles James. I have a book on Mariano Fortuny that I need to read. There's just so much learning. So I don't think it ever stops, to be fair. I think you can just always continue reading. Would you like to publish a book in the future? And if so, about what? That is a good question. And yes, I would, but I'm just not in the frame of mind right now to write a book. I have too many things going on. So yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of hard to write a book. So much research. It takes so much time. Yeah, I'd love to write one, but not anytime soon. I kind of binge on the vlog stuff because he's interactive, and I feel that's what we have to do as a community. Yeah, I think I need to vlog more because I think I can't really bring out my personality unless I do a live stream like this or I vlog. If I'm making a video, there's not really any personality, which is why I'd say my kind of videos are like less engaging because I'm just like sharing information. There's nothing really, and it's not my personality to be like, yes, so what Chanel did, it's just not. You're even going to cringe through the screen because it's just awkward. Am I excited for the Met Gala? Yeah, I'm kind of excited, and I do want to review the Met Gala this year because I remember I don't like really talking about celebrity fashion much, but I remember last year I got berated online for not talking about the Met Gala. So this year I'm going to make a video about it. I should make a video on like the history of the Met Gala. Like I think I should make a video on like how Diana Vreeland sort of revolutionized the Met and kind of why the Met Gala is as famous as it is. A lot of it is because of Diana Vreeland. And I this summer, once again, that's another thing that I read about Diana Vreeland. I read her book. So I need to go back to that book and then extract the information about the Met Gala and make a video about it, about what she did with the Met, because it's really, really good. Um, let's see. What, zoning out? Okay, I feel like they're having a little conversation in the comment section. This is cool. That's cool. That's cool. Any resources for learning how to improve in writing? Oh, that's a good one. Well, you can always improve your vocabulary. That's one thing. You can improve your vocabulary by taking vocabulary like online courses. You can also do it by just reading. In terms of writing, I don't know. It's kind of hard to improve writing because you might think you're a good writer, but it's not until someone starts reviewing your work that you realize things that you do that you tend to do. And for a long time, and not that I thought I was an amazing writer, but I definitely thought I was better than I was until I went to CSM, and then lecturers would like really break down your essays and break every part of it, and you start to realize, oh yeah, I should do this, I should do that, I have a tendency to do that. So I think improving in writing, the best thing you can do is really actually find a mentor, like someone who is really like a someone who's an academic or someone who's good with English, and get them to review your articles and kind of give you pointers. I think that's the best way. Because online courses, it's not really like no one's really giving you really active feedback on stuff you write. They're just giving you like tips. But you don't like when you go through those courses, not many people can actually take all those tips all at once and actually implement them. Like we might think we do, but we don't, most of us. Fashion school dropout here. Is it more important for me to find a job that will allow me to gain experience with the type of fashion I want to work with, or should I look for a uni college program? Honestly, job experience more important because you've been to fashion school. I don't think even though you dropped out, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters personally. Difference between American and European fashion. European fashion is more artistic and creative. American fashion is more commercial, and I think that comes down to and obviously that's in a general sense. Out of America, there's still like very avant-garde designers like Christopher John Rogers, or brands like Tom Brown, brands like Rick Owens. But in a general sense, fashion in America is more about commerce, money. Fashion in Europe is more about art. And the reason I think is just the way it's taught. Like my friends that go to FIT, they say that the designers are given like business courses and there's a big emphasis on like that won't sell. In CSM, they don't care about anything to do with money. It's probably why CSM kids are normally broke. Like they honestly they don't care. At CSM, they just want you to do the craziest things and they push you to do the more artistic thing. And they push you, go and research that book because I think it works in this collection. That's how like CSM kind of works. And I know they kind of teach the same way like the Royal Academy in Fine Art or like somewhere like Polymoda or somewhere like um, fashion schools in Paris. So I think that's the major difference. Any thoughts on the democratization of fashion through social media? How does it affect places like H&M? When you say democratization of fashion through social media, do you mean like, because when you say H&M, do you mean that people are just more educated about the bad effects of fashion? So people get more educated about sustainability, therefore less people are likely to buy into H&M. The thing is, even though it seems like people are more educated about sustainability, H&M is not like losing money or like losing market share or anything like that. So I think people might say on social media that they're not buying certain brands, but I don't think it reflects on what they actually do, which is fine. Like, I'm not here to judge anyone's decisions, to be honest. But yeah. Yeah, fashion isn't really that democratized. Yeah, it depends on what aspect we're talking about. In terms of talking about fashion, the discussion points, who has a voice, I think is definitely democratized. But in terms of who has the power, who has the say on like what actually happens, yeah, it's not democratized at all. I'm taking classes at community college right now, so when I transfer over to FIT or Parsons, I won't take online classes because that just sounds like expensive Khan Academy to me. I agree. But you don't have to pay for online classes. There are a lot of free ones that are really good, to be honest. Or ones that aren't too expensive, like Skillshare has good classes. I'm not just saying that because they sponsor my channel. Like, I promise, I only work with stuff that I do like. Like, Skillshare is like, I think $10 a month. And obviously, it depends on where you live, whether that becomes expensive or not. But if you live in like the UK or the US, where like minimum wage is literally in the UK would be like £8 an hour ish, like £7 to £8 an hour. That means if you work 2 hours, that's literally enough to pay for the monthly subscription for Skillshare, which has everything on there. Relatively, it's not that expensive. Ooh, so many questions. I love this. Damn. He said, honestly, your videos are engaging. I find the overacting stuff cringe. Hey guys, do you know what it is? I think you can't please everyone because I got a comment on my channel the other day, right? Let me see if I can actually bring it up so I can read it out like word for word. He was basically saying how, because of the title of my videos, he really wants to watch my videos, but then I'm not engaging enough. Or I'm not like interesting enough for him to watch it. And I get it. Like he wasn't trying to be mean. It was coming from a good place. So I did take it on board, but I can't change. Like this is just how I am. Let me see if I can read out what he said. Unless he's deleted the comment. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna read out what the comment says. It says, this is coming from a person who really wants to get into your videos based on the titles. The presentation makes it really difficult to get into the video and follow it in an engaged way. The tone of your presentation kind of dulls me. I'm not paying a single attention to what is actually being said. That, along with the lack of imagery regarding specific information, makes the videos very difficult to get through, finish, enjoy, and actually learn. Now, granted, that is so then he went on to say he's probably clicked on every single one of my videos, but he didn't continue watching after 7 minutes, which is cool. Like, I'm not a sensitive person. It's like good feedback, but I'm never going to change the way I am because that's just how I am. So sorry. But in terms of like the imagery and stuff, that was good feedback. But the problem is that's an old video. And my new videos, I do make it a thing to like put imagery on the screen when I talk about stuff and put the what I'm talking about, like the runway shows, on the screen because that was feedback I got a while ago. But yeah, so I guess it's just like it just depends on who you're talking to. Some people really like the way I talk in my videos, and then some people really can't follow it and they find me really boring. Oh my god. I'm really interested in how people just quit fashion from Miguela Drover to that girl who ran the online Met Gala. I forgot her name. Miguela Drover is amazing, by the way. I love Miguela Drover. But I think people just think that they've achieved everything they want to achieve. Like I know with Andamina Mista, for example, the reason why she quit fashion was because she just felt like she had achieved everything she needed to achieve and she set out to achieve in fashion. So she was like, I'm still a creative. I'm going to make furniture and homeware, which she does now. But as far as fashion goes, she just felt like she achieved everything she needed to. But even now, and Auntie Minimista, she's still involved in the brand. So she didn't really quit, did she? Most people that quit, they're still kind of involved in fashion one way or another. And said, agreed. Getting writing edited and critique makes you better. I agree. Yep. 100%. Journaling is good, but it's not the same as structured essay writing. Yep. If I come sailing school out there in London, can I stay with you? Would definitely cut back on expense. Yeah, that it's kind of no. Sorry. One, I can afford to I can afford to stay where I am, and secondly, I don't like living with people because I'm like really clean and I don't even know who you are. I don't mean it in a weird way, but like how can I just live with like someone I don't even know? That's a bit strange. That's a bit weird. But we can definitely meet up and stuff, but to live with me, that's a bit strange. I don't even know how old you are. Jesus Christ. Do you think fashion norm will change in the future, like with innovations in clothing or technology? Is fashion become more standard? Yeah, I think fashion is constantly changing. If you look at a good fashion week to look at for stuff like this is Copenhagen Fashion Week. I think in terms of fabric technology and Tokyo, actually, Tokyo and Copenhagen, as far as fabric technology and sustainability goes, those two sort of fashion weeks are very, very good in terms of innovation and seeing where fashion can go. So yeah, I think fashion is going to change. The Sheen competition with Christian, yeah. I don't even want to talk about that. Yeah. Who do you think is the most underrated UK brand? One that you could expect to blow up in a year or two? There's so many. I don't want to keep saying the same brands, but honestly, someone said it. John Alexander Skelton, but it's been around for so long. But it's so underrated though. Such good quality garments, amazing stuff. Stefan Cook, Pig Otterson, underrated. I think Wells Bonner, I didn't like her work at first, but now I really think she's found herself. And now I really like her work. But I don't think she's underrated because I think she gets a lot of press. Same with Bianca Saunders. And Aliwalia, who I would have said was underrated before, she's getting so much press now that I think she's kind of surpassed being underrated. So I'd say the brands I mentioned earlier. Thoughts on Robert Woon? I love Robert Woon's clothing. I like the silhouettes. Yeah, I like Robert Woon. Oh no, Tiana, you're not too late. You're not too late. You're not too late. I'm like almost 2 hours in, but I'm probably gonna talk for another like hour or so. Yo, shout out to Toby Roberts. Oh my god, this is crazy. So let me give you guys a story. So me and Toby went to school together. So I've known Toby since I was like 16 years old. 16, 17-ish. And when I was like first getting into fashion seriously, Toby was like one of the people that got me into fashion because he was at the time a Rick Head. But this was when I was 16 and now I'm like almost 24. So this was like 8 years ago when like Rick wasn't like mainstream or popular like that. It was a very niche thing. So yeah, shout out to Toby Roberts. That's crazy. Oh, let's see. I'm trying to keep up with the questions. This is a really good thing, though. Okay. Someone's asking me about fashion trends. Okay, wait, hold on. Is there an unspoken battle between British and French style/fashion? I don't think so. Not that I know of. No, I don't think so. Do you think fashion trends will be a thing of the past with bigger trends like anti-fashion, minimalism, sustainability? No, I think fashion will always, because most people, I think, get into fashion or wear clothes because they want to look good. And what is deemed as looking good is really what is trendy, what majority of people think looks good, which most times is what the trend is. So I think in a general sense, there'll be more people moving away from that. But generally, I think trends will always be a big thing. There's a spoken battle between the four fashion capitals. No, I don't think there's a battle. I think, as far as the four fashion capitals go, I think Paris is by far the most important one, no debate. And I think Milan has been trying to compete with them for so long, and it's just not working. London is not competing with anyone. London is just known as the place where you see the most innovative designs and the best emerging talent is what we have in London. Paris is where all the established brands go. So London, everyone's emerging. When people become established, they all move to Paris or Milan. Um, so Milan is basically what Paris is on a smaller scale. London is where like the emerging talent is, and New York is where there are a lot more commercial brands, but a lot of commerce happens because the big boys are in New York. Like America is a massive market compared to places like France. France is tiny compared to America. So everyone wants to go to America for like business reasons. And all the big buyers. Obviously, Barney's has gone bankrupt now, but Barney's used to be like huge for New York Fashion Week. And a lot of brands would hope showing there that they'll get picked up by Barney's and all these different retailers in the US. So yeah, those are kind of like the differences between them. I don't think there's competition though. How do I sustain myself? I mean, YouTube is your main source, or do you have another job? So how I earn money. So there's YouTube, which doesn't make me a lot of money at all, probably because I don't post much. So there's YouTube. There is my magazine, because even though it's sold out, I still have the digital version on my website. So people buy that from time to time. That brings in some income. I'd say the main chunk of my income and what pays the bills is honestly my writing work. So partially BOF, and then stuff I do like freelance. But my writing stuff is not always articles. Sometimes I get paid to write press releases for brands. Sometimes I get paid to write product descriptions for different brands on their website. Um, but it's not like I'm swimming in money. It's not like I'm like rich or anything. I wish I made more money. I probably should promote my Patreon more and turn it into a thing. That's probably what I should do. That's probably the direction I should go into. Promote my Patreon and then get my Patreon to a point where that could be a good income. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really that stressed. I'm not like trying to get rich or anything. And I'm good where I am. I can pay my bills. I have enough money to buy the occasional piece when I want to. I can afford to travel within reason. So yeah, is what it is. What do you think about pricey brands like Balenciaga getting rude, leaning into hype culture? Feels wrong that Zoomers are pressured into feeling that they need Balenciaga sneakers because of Instagram. I think if it works, it works. Honestly, I think if it works, it works. Your style of presenting is solid. You could add more B-roll and stuff you want to make them more catchy, although that's more research and editing. I don't find the presenting boring. Okay, that's fair enough. Do you think clothing stores should have reviews and comments like other online stores do? Alone outside connection on nice stores help create more fashion communities. It would, but I think brands are so stuck in like thinking about like being cancelled and stuff that they won't do it because they're just thinking, oh, we're going to get so many negative comments. But not really. If you make good clothing and good garments that aren't going to rip after 5 wears or fade, then you shouldn't really be scared about that. But yeah, I don't think many brands going to do that. Should I spend $600 on an Andy boot? Only if you can afford it, because a boot is not a necessity; it's a want. So if you can afford it, then yes. But if you can't, I wouldn't suggest it. Willing to help out with the video editing. Love your channel. Hey, if you want to help with the video editing, I'm not going to say no. I'll tell you that much. It'll definitely make my life a lot easier. At the end of the day, the type of content you produce, it's hard to make super engaging. Like, hey guys, I guess the teaching through reporting is where the engagement comes from. Okay. This is good feedback, guys. But I think for every positive, I am aware that for every positive comment, there will still be that person who's like, I really want to get into your videos, but I just find you really boring, which is fair enough. Like, everyone has their opinions. I've been designing, constructing, and sewing clothes for some time and started to sell it just recently. I'm not sure what's the right word to call myself, a designer, a tailor. Yeah, you can call yourself a designer, especially if you're designing, constructing, and sewing. Yeah, you're a designer, straight up. Um, yeah, that's good. That's really good. Talking about a brand, actually, because someone asked me, how do I make money? So, my plan to make significantly more money than I do to a point where I could actually sustain myself properly is to make a brand. But it's not like a fashion brand, It's more like, so I'm not sure how many people, and I've talked about this before, but I'll just say it again. I'm not sure how many people are aware of the magazine 032C. It's like an underground magazine. They talk about broad range of stuff, kind of what I want to do. They talk about streetwear. They also talk about high-end fashion. They have an amazing interview with Ray Kawakubo on one issue, and they have amazing interviews like Ras Simmons and stuff. Really good magazine. They also have a brand, but it's kind of like part of the magazine because it's called 032C. And that brand stocks in DSM. It stocks in so many retailers. And they also have different types of the brand. So they have like permanent collection, which is stuff that you can buy all year round. And those are like the more commercial stuff like hoodies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, whatever. That's like more merch for the magazine. And then they have actual like collections that are like more higher end stuff with inspiration. And then also they collaborate with other fashion brands to make clothing. So I kind of want my magazine to expand that way because I think commercially that makes a lot more sense. So yeah, that's the direction I'm going to go in when I can afford it because it's so expensive. Like the whole process of sampling. I did sampling. I've done that process twice now. I've done it with magazines and tote bags. And those are nothing compared to trying to do sampling for a whole collection. That's just, I don't even want to think about how much it's going to cost me because it's just, yeah. Have I heard of Jamie G from Bling Empire? She's into fashion on YouTube. She spends on a lot of new designers. I know who that is. I've watched Bling Empire actually. I know she has a YouTube channel because they actually talked about it in Bling Empire, but I haven't seen it. But those people are so rich though. The people on Bling Empire, those guys are like almost billionaires, so they can afford to buy whatever they want. Like those guys were stupid rich. So yeah, different kind of lifestyle. Do you think something needs to be a little bit anti-consensus or weird looking to be fashionable, like the swing from tight to baggy silhouettes? No, I don't think so. I don't think I don't like this idea of like something is fashionable. I don't like that. I think anything can be fashionable. Just what works for you and how do you express yourself through clothing. I don't think there's one way to be fashionable. So I don't think something has to be like anti-consensus to be fashionable. I think anything can be fashionable. It just depends. Hey, it's really been literally years since I last properly engaged in the world of fashion or with your channel. Just want to say, hope you're well and congratulations on your magazine. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. And shout out to Richard. When I was shopping around for sweatsuits, UK brands had the best selection. I found that interesting. Oh, that's really interesting. I think sustainable fashion is a bubble looking at how big Shein is, especially with Gen Z. Exactly. Like social media will really make you think that sustainability, like people actually care, but people really don't. Like they really don't. And I'm so sure, like 90%, because people love to virtue signal. So I'm sure 90% of the people um that always talk about sustainability and you guys are terrible because you guys buy fast fashion. They buy fast fashion as well. That's why I talk about sustainability. I talk about like the issues of it, but I can't condemn someone for buying into fast fashion because I buy fast fashion because I don't buy like H&M and Zara and stuff, but I still buy sportswear. And let's face it, sportswear is fast fashion. So like even now I'm wearing like Nike sweatpants. That is fast fashion. So I can't be like, oh, you guys are terrible. Like it just doesn't make sense. Did you end up using your engineering degree and why did you pick it up in the first place? No, I didn't. And the reason why I did chemical engineering was because at the age of 18, I didn't know what I wanted to do, which is why I think 18 is too early to like make a whole decision on your life. And you're kind of pressured, especially being like Nigerian, into going to school. And I was good at in school. What I used to do best in were subjects like physics, maths, chemistry. So it's like, okay, what what can I do with those subjects that has the best job prospects, which is why I studied chemical engineering as my first degree, but I hated it. So I didn't like it. It's because I didn't, it's not like I had so much passion for being an engineer. It's just I thought that was the right thing to do at the time. Um, but yeah, it was good character building, I guess. What do I think about Denzel Dion? I know who Denzel Dion is. I've watched a few videos in the past. I find him funny. I definitely find him really funny. I think he's hilarious. I know he hangs out with Ricky Thompson, who I find hilarious as well. But I don't really have an opinion on Denzel Dion. I find his fashion takes a bit because his fashion takes a very that's garbage because I think it's garbage and it's not based on any information or knowledge whatsoever. But I still do find him like really entertaining. Where would you buy fabric if you don't live in a big city? Um, I don't know what country you're in, but you don't like in the UK, you don't need to be in a big city to find fabric. There's fabric literally everywhere. So I don't know. And you can buy fabric online. What do I think about Nina Rishi's bucket hats? I love them. I love the silhouette of Nina Rishi bucket hats. One of my friend actually has one, and I think it looks so chic. She looks amazing when she wears it. Hello from South Africa. I love your channel. Shout out to South Africa. Shout out to SA. What are some other great fashion cities? So I'm guessing you mean outside of London, New York, Milan, and Paris. Antwerp is one. Copenhagen, Tokyo, Shanghai. What's another good fashion city? Lagos, becoming a good fashion city. It's getting there. Um, where else would I say is a good fashion city? I have to come back to that question. Do you have any tips for an aspiring designer who won't go to college? I'm afraid I won't be called freelance jobs without a diploma, especially here in Brazil. Oh, so yeah, you won't go to college, but then you won't be called for freelance jobs. I guess you just have to work on your skills and become so good that people have to hire you because in fashion, yes, some people just look at qualifications, but there are many people in fashion who don't care about that stuff and just care about what skills you actually have. So I think, and there are certain skills that if you master, you have a job everywhere. For example, pattern cutting is so important. It's like one of the most important jobs in fashion. Like if you become a good pattern cutter, you're always going to find work somewhere. So I think finding skills that are very valuable, like pattern cutting and sewing, is definitely very valuable. Everyone needs a seamstress. So yeah. No, I haven't listened to Donda. I'm getting so many questions about this. I haven't. I'm so sorry, guys. I feel like I'm letting everyone down. If you wouldn't be boring, and get called annoying for something else. Yeah, that's true. Am I a big Helmut Lang fan? Not really, but I do respect what Helmut Lang did. I just like, if you look at fashion history historically, a lot of what Helmut Lang did I've seen before, but it doesn't take away from like what Helmut Lang did, because context matters in fashion. But yeah, he said we off the grid to just cop some clothes, Dover Street Market. Your thoughts on Audrey Hepburn's wardrobe in the movies, Charade, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and so on, that were made by Givenchy? That was part of what made Givenchy big, isn't it? So yeah, I don't know what thoughts I have apart from, because Givenchy is known very much for sort of that. It's that look that, what's the subculture? What are they called? The flappers. I feel like Givenchy is heavily associated with flappers. It's that whole aesthetic of like really beautiful dresses, but also even Yves Saint Laurent is kind of also in that sort of that aesthetic of really beautiful dresses, but also clothing that made women feel powerful, power shoulders. So yeah, I don't know what thoughts I have about the outfits, apart from just the fact that it's part of the reason why Givenchy became as big as a brand as it is. I think everyone actually is like that. Even if you look at history, I think fashion has and I know this because I've been reading about a lot of brands recently. Fashion has, it ties in very heavily with Hollywood, and a lot of couturiers are only famous because either they were heavily associated with royalty or heavily associated with Hollywood. So there are people like Cristobal Balenciaga, who wasn't necessarily big in Hollywood, didn't really have like a massive break, but Cristobal Balenciaga used to dress a lot of royalty, and that's how Cristobal became respected. And then you have people like Givenchy, you have people like Yves Saint Laurent, who were, dressing some of the most iconic actresses. And that's kind of what they're, even someone like Schiaparelli. Schiaparelli, when she moved to New York, she kind of became associated with Hollywood, and she used to move around those circles, and that's what really elevated her brand to the next level. Because the difference between, I'd say, Chanel and someone like Schiaparelli is Chanel was always good commercially because she kind of was better at running a business. I think Schiaparelli was just a better designer, but she wasn't as business savvy. And so even though she was like the purist who made amazing clothes, I don't think as many people cared. And it wasn't until she went to New York and made a name for herself through like Hollywood and New York, and she was very heavily associated with Hollywood. So anyway, I went on this like big tangent. So yeah, that's kind of like my general thoughts about Audrey Hepburn and Givenchy. 032C recent issue had a Samuel Ross interview, was such a good read. Yeah. Are you tapped in with the brand Against Medical Advice? Nope. Never heard of it. Let me just Google it. So I'll look at it later. Against Medical Advice. Interesting. I'll look into that later. I do like, okay, so they're talking about Jamie now. I do like how she buys a diverse range of designers. She has true style, but let's watch some of her videos in the background as I like answer these questions. I know she has a YouTube channel though, because they talked about it in the Netflix show. And I glanced at it, and I think I wasn't interested because the titles are always luxury fashion haul, and she buys like you'll see when you see the thumbnail, it's just like loads of boxes of like Chanel and stuff. So I just assumed she was just like going into the store and buying really expensive but really commercial stuff. So I just wasn't really interested. And I was just like, yeah, it's cool. She can afford that. And anytime, I feel like the reason why hauls do so well, those type of videos get loads of views, is because people are so interested in like living vicariously through people that can afford stuff that other people want. I think that's why. And me personally, that sort of stuff that just doesn't personally interest me. But that being said, we can watch one of her videos in the background. You can watch that in the background. This is huge luxury designer unboxing haul. Chanel, Balenciaga, Dior, Marine Serre. That's a lot of boxes. Her closet must be the size of my house. Your tote bag is a game changer, worn every single day since I copped it. Thank you very much. So the thing about my tote bag is it is merch, but I see it as elevated merch because I did so much, and that's the problem. Like, because it's just a tote bag, and I'm gonna re-release them by the way soon. People just see it as, oh, it's just merch, but like it took me, if on Patreon I have a video about like the sampling process. It took me ages to sample the right fabric because I wanted it. Because when I wear tote bags, one thing that always pissed me off was that tote bags are never sturdy. So anytime you put something heavy in a tote bag, like a laptop, it just disintegrates and it feels like the handle's going to rip. So I did so much work in making sure that like, and also the zip, of course, like making sure that like actually testing it to put heavy stuff in it and making sure that it can withstand heavy weights. But yeah, thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate it. Most valuable things I've learned at Central St. Martin's. That I don't know that much about fashion. I really know nothing about fashion. I've definitely improved a lot as a writer. I've learned a lot about how the industry works. Um, I've learned how to do proper research, like in an academic way, in a fashion context. Um, yeah, I'd say those are the things I've learned. Mainly just there's so much I need to learn, really. But yeah. Thoughts on Molly May heading Pretty Little Thing? Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on that. I just think it makes no sense. Ready for my question to get cancelled. I'll ask the engineering question because I'm thinking of doing a type of engineering that's kind of business that's managing orientated. And I plan to transition into working for business as supply chain. You can use engineering in fashion, even if like Nike hires engineers to work on like their fabrics and stuff, or like Gore-Tex hires engineers. So even an engineering degree is still, well, what I study, chemical engineering, is relevant in fashion. Not so much like mechanical engineering, really, or like aeronautical engineering. But if you study like chemical, then yeah. Yeah, I live in London. I've known about Cortez since it started, like years ago. Um, but yeah, it's become popular like quite recently. But yeah, I'm quite tapped into what happens in London because a lot of these people like same friendship circles like Cortez, Ime, all those brands. Like I've known about those brands since they started, quite literally. Like Nothing for Us, all those kind of brands. Um, as most brand name flexes in music, soft PR pushes of brands that's organic. Should I? Okay, let me give you guys a hot take. I think a lot of rappers they get introduced to certain brands by their stylists, and then they want to come across like they know a lot about fashion. So then they start name dropping a lot of brands. But these same people, if you ask them like very detailed questions about these brands, they wouldn't be able to tell you. So this whole thing where everyone's like talking about, oh, I'll be rocking Celine. I'll be wearing Angie Williamista, all this stuff. It's just, I think it's this whole idea of that hip hop artists like to do. It's like, you guys are not what I'm on. It's that sort of thing. It makes me cringe personally, but yeah, it's just weird. Am I a fan of Moa? Nah, I like some of the stuff she does. Some other stuff, not so much. So mixed thoughts. I haven't actually seen this, but I do need to see this about Gianni Versace. I need to see that. Honestly, all of Japan is great fashion for less than the price of a pair of recurrents. You come back with a suitcase full of amazing, unique stuff. Yes, that's true, but it's not true for me. You know, like how people go to Japan and go thrifting and find like yoji for cheap and all that stuff. None of that stuff fits me because Japanese people are tiny. So like all the sizes in Japan, like they're just so small and it pisses me off so much. Because I'd love to go to Japan and just thrift cheap stuff, amazing stuff, and come back with a full suitcase. But no, it doesn't apply to me, but it applies to most people. Do I think Matthew Williams is heading to designer, and where do you stack him against big dons like Kim Jones, Demner? Okay. Kim Jones and Demner, I think, are in a different league to Matthew Williams for many different reasons that I won't get into. But just talking about Matthew Williams, I think he has talent. I just think his mind is in the wrong place. I can't remember who I was talking. Yes, I was on Instagram Live and I was talking about this literally like 2 days ago. And the problem with Matthew Williams, to me personally, is just that I think one of the reasons he went to Givenchy was because he wanted to be taken seriously. It's like this whole thing. He wants to be seen as like a real designer, whatever that means. And he wants to be respected. And now what he's done at Givenchy, it's not the type of stuff that will get him respected. Because all he's done is make bootlegs of old Givenchy stuff instead of like mark his own era. So for example, if you think of all the creative directors at Givenchy, whether we're talking about, I don't know, Alexander McQueen, Oswald Boateng, Riccardo Tisci, Claire, they all have something that if you think of their era, like when I think of McQueen as Givenchy, I think of like golden horns, I think of crazy footwear, I think of the dresses, the flamboyant dresses. When I think of Oswald Boateng, I think of colorful suits. I think of how he innovated how runway shows are and how presentation of runway shows are with what he did with the digital side of fashion. When I think of Riccardo Tisci, I think of how he started this wave of streetwear luxe that is now a big thing. But when Riccardo Tisci did it, it was kind of the beginning stages of it. Claire White Keller with her clean lines. Everyone has like their stamp. And then you have Matthew Williams, who he kind of copied the shoes that McQueen made for Horn of Plenty. And he also made that cap with horns. That was kind of a reference to old McQueen. So all people aren't going to take you seriously for doing that. People are just going to be like, oh, it's just a watered down version of McQueen. And then he made a Rottweiler piece that was referencing Riccardo Tisci's Rottweiler sweater, but it was like graffitied on rather than a print. And once again, people are just going to be like, to me personally, I feel like he's talented. He just needs to stamp his own mark at Givenchy and stop trying to reference other people or trying to, because I think he thinks that people are going to take him seriously by him showing that, oh yes, I know about the past of Givenchy, but I don't think that's the way to go. That's just me personally. But that's my hot take for the day. Emerging African streetwear scene. I think Vivendi is absolute garbage, but I do like Daily Paper though. But I think Vivendi is yeah, terrible. But I think Daily Paper is cool. I hate shopping vlogs and hauls. Shout out to Wacamo. Yo, are you guys free? Do you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna share the link. Wacamo, if you guys are free, join the chat. Because we haven't had you in a live stream for a while. What do I think of Jill Sander? I love Jill Sander. And I've loved it all its time. whether we're talking about Jill Sander herself, or we're talking about like Luke and Lucy Myers era, or we're talking about Ras Simmons. Yeah, I love Jill Sander. I do. The problem with Jill Sander now, though, even though they make amazing stuff, first of all, I think the women's wear is significantly better than the men's wear. Like, oh my god, if I show you some Jill Sander shows, I'm gonna put them on the screen. Give me a second. Like, women's wear is amazing. But the problem is now there are too many brands that are adjacent to a Jill Sander aesthetic. So you kind of clump Jill Sander in with a lot of other brands like The Row and Bottega. Obviously, it's not the same, but it's kind of similar. And now Phoebe Philo is going to come back. It's probably going to be that similar aesthetic. So yeah, but I'm just going to find the show because I actually want to show you guys how good Jill Sander women's wear is. What's this show that I just really loved? Was it Fall Winter? No, I think it was earlier than that. I think it was. Yes, Fall Winter 2018. That's it. Yeah, this show, amazing. Your thoughts on skinny models from the 90s? Are we talking about like the era of supermodels? Like all those supermodels that came through in the 90s? I don't really have any thoughts on that. I don't really care for like beauty standards and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Someone said, yeah, I can't buy shit in Japan and I'm 6'3". Exactly. Thoughts on Maximilian? Also, do you think living in London helps with connections in fashion or helps improve opportunities? First of all, I do like Maximilian, although I think he interned at Moalolo, and you can see a lot of similarities, especially in like his earlier work. But I do like Maximilian. There are these pants that Maximilian made. They're like they have like slashes all across the front. I think they look so good. But yeah, I like what Maximilian does. I've been following Maximilian, especially because of Fashion East. I do like what happens with Fashion East. So yeah. And what was the other question you asked? Do you think living in London helps with connections and fashion? It only helps if you actually network. Like you can live in London all you want, but if you stay in your house, then yeah, it's not going to help, is it? So I think going to events, I think putting yourself out there is what will help more than anything else. And you can kind of do that online too. So yeah, that's what I will say. Yeah, someone said Le Maire. Yeah, it's kind of that Jill Sanders sort of aesthetic too. It's crazy that you're in here first. You're going to find your fashion design, and I'm not ready. Everyone normally feels like that, to be fair. Do you agree with Tuba Avalon about Phoebe Philo not doing as well with her new brand because she peaked already? Yeah, I watched Tuba's video, by the way. Tuba's an amazing channel you guys should all check out. And I kind of agree because, yeah, Phoebe Philo was kind of at the top of fashion. So I don't see how she can replicate that. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Have I heard of Holtzweiler and Livid Jeans? No, I have not. I love how people put me onto new brands every live stream. It's actually so cool. Do you think CSM is worth going to, and is it a helpful push into the industry? So once again, it depends on what you study because CSM isn't good in everything. But if you're studying like design or journalism, then yes, it's good. I definitely think it's helpful because the CSM network is insane. I feel like me as a journalist, when I reach out to designers that have gone to CSM and I tell them that I'm a journalism student at CSM, how they react to me now versus when I didn't go to CSM and I was just like, oh, can I interview? And they would ignore me. It's so weird. It's almost like there's this camaraderie between like CSM alumni. And because so many of them go on to do great stuff, I've seen that it's helped me. Also, connections. Like every time I have a project at CSM at school, I sometimes forget how connected my lecturers are because I forget, oh yeah, it's CSM. So like I will just be like trying to find books about a topic, and then my lecturer will be like, why didn't you just tell me? I'm friends with that person. And I'm like, oh damn. Like, yeah, sorry, I wouldn't have thought of that. And like, yeah, just everyone at CSM is just like crazy connected. So networking. But once again, the thing about CSM though is like, if you just go to the school and you don't network and you just stay in your house and you don't really talk to anyone, it doesn't really matter because you're not taking advantage of what the school's good for, which is a good networking opportunity. So once again, it really depends. It is what you make it. Okay, I'm trying to catch up. Yeah, I agree. The best advice for networking is that you should network with other people on your level now who are out doing stuff. Don't focus on famous people. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like that's so true because when I was younger, all the people I networked with or made friends with, it was all genuine. We were just like kind of interested in fashion, and a lot of them now have gone on to do like really crazy stuff, and some of them are even really famous within fashion. So actually, that's such good advice. Really good advice. Because I think when people think of networking, they think of like meeting big designers and stuff. I don't think you should focus on that, especially if you're younger. But how do you network? You talk to people. Like, okay, let me give you a good example. There's people at CSM. I'll just give you an example of like what I'm gonna do next month when I have to go back to school. So there are a lot of people that because of COVID, they go to CSM, but I've never met them before. Um, so I have a blocked nose, which is why my voice is like going funny. But I'm planning to meet all of them when I go to school. Like I message them on Instagram. I'm like, oh yeah, when we're in school, like we should meet up for like coffee in the cafeteria and stuff. It's that easy because we're like all students. Like there's no ego or anything, at least not yet. So everyone's just like willing to meet everyone. And then also events, fashion events, especially when people have had a drink, people are more like willing to talk. You just have to put yourself out there. And sometimes, yes, you might get embarrassed. Like you might try to talk to someone and they give you that like bitchy look. But if that happens, that's their problem. It's not really your problem. And I don't mind when that happens to me because it says less about me and more about them. So honestly, you just have to put yourself out there. Do you think do you not think there's more pressure on designers who study at CSM to succeed in the industry? Um, there is more pressure. Yeah, because people expect that, oh, you go to CSM, so you have to be a big thing. But I also think, okay, let me just give you the tea about CSM. There are a lot of good designers at CSM, but also a lot of universities are struggling financially. So a lot of like at CSM, there are many students who are international students and therefore they pay more money and therefore they're important to the school financially, who sometimes you question how did they get into this school. You're like, how? Because they can't cope and they're like failing and like their work is not good. But you just know it's because like they have a lot of money and the school needs that money to survive. So there's this assumption that just because you go to CSM, like all CSM designers are good. From my experience and what I've seen, that's not true. I've seen some horrific designers at CSM, just saying. They should make a Tinder for fashion networking. My favorite article I've written. My most recent one, well, not my most recent one, but the one before my most recent one for BOF, which was about how like African fashion is evolving as an industry. I really liked that. And like the research I did for the article was so much fun. Like I got to interview so many interesting people, like industry players, people that own stores, where they stock African brands and all that stuff. It was really good insight. Was for networking, use your city's areas to your advantage. Parks. Yep. Yeah. Like I meet people all the time, like networking. Like I meet new people literally all the time. Literally on Tuesday. So let me just give you an example, like my networking for next week. On Tuesday, I'm meeting up with a guy for the first time. And we're gonna have a little discussion. On Wednesday, I'm going to an event with one of my friends, Alex. She's trans, and we're going to this event. It's like a launch party of a podcast, and I only know one person there. So when I get there, I'm only going to know Alex, who I'm going with, and then the one person who's actually hosting the event. But everyone else there, I won't know them. But you can be sure I'm going to talk to everyone there, though. And that's an example of networking. You just have to. I don't really know how to explain to someone how you network. You just need to talk to people. I don't really know how you explain that. So it's like everything, you only get to see the good and don't see the bad unless you're in the environment. But yeah, okay, it's kind of getting late. So I think I'll answer a few more questions and then end the live stream. I also want to go to the gym early tomorrow. So Rick Owens DNYC collab. I haven't seen that. Do you live in a hall? If so, what are people like? No. Now the reason I don't live in halls is because one, I've been to university already. So this is my second university. And I'm so much older than the people that are in halls. Like all the kids in halls are 18 and I'm like almost 24. So generationally, I think, yeah, because even like people in my class, like I love them, but they're quite immature is not the right word. They're quite I'm looking for a word because immature is not the word I mean. It's more like they're just a bit too young. Like I can't really, like I look at them as like classmate peers, but I can never be friends with a lot of them because they're just too young and the way they think, I just can't. Yeah, I just can't. Like I think we're just at two different stages in life. Like I'm someone who moved away from home when I was 9, been in boarding school my whole life. Already been to uni. This is like my second degree. So yeah, we're just at different stages of life. I also think I'm like really mature for my age, so I can't. Yeah, someone said inexperienced, exactly. So yeah, I just could not live in halls. I would get so angry and frustrated and annoyed. So yeah, that's why I live at home. I'm quite lucky because my family has always lived in London, so I always had somewhere to stay. Even if like I didn't stay where I am now, I have so many family members across London who I could live with. So I'm quite lucky in that regard that I have a lot of family in London. Someone said naive. That's another good word. Yes, I'm by far the oldest in my class. Like by far. I'm old. I'm older than all the second years and third years and first years. I'm like the oldest on fashion journalism at CSM, like across the board, which is hilarious. But so like there's just stuff that like, okay, let me give you a good example of what I mean by like people on my course are like a bit inexperienced is a word that someone said, which is a good word. So for example, people in my class stress about things that you don't need to stress about. So for example, like projects that we do, people get so stressed, or because they haven't like experienced what it is like to work in the industry, we get given like essays and we get like a 1 month deadline and people are stressed like, oh my god, there's so much work to do in a month, and I'm like, not really. So I just think people stress about and they don't realize that when they work in the industry, they're actually going to have to work harder than our course. So, which is why, like, a lot of people on my course, for example, they don't understand how I was able to like do my course and then work on my magazine and stuff. I think it's just life experience. Like you learn these things as you get older and as you work in the industry. So yeah. What did I study when I lived in Leeds? I studied chemical engineering. Do you think because of the world's crisis and climate impact, people at some point will stop consuming fashion? I don't think so. I don't think so because sustainability has been a talking point for so long, like literally since the 90s, and it's like nothing has changed. You actually got your first internship through accidental networking. Yeah, exactly. You're talking about fashion with a random person and they offered you a good job. Yep, exactly. That's exactly how I got my first fashions. That was how I started working in fashion. It was because I was networking. I'm always talkative. I like to talk to people. I'm not really shy. And I saw the woman who ended up hiring me. I saw her face on a fashion magazine. And I was like, how come you're like on a fashion magazine? Do you work in fashion? She was like, yeah. And then that's how we just started a whole long conversation about fashion. Before I knew it, she hired me to be her intern. This is hilarious. This is going to be so poorly worded, but they're still on that A-level GCSE type stress, literally stressing over small coursework projects. So I don't want to, because some of my classmates might actually be watching this live stream, and I don't want to come across as like condescending, but yes, it kind of is like that. It's kind of like because they have nothing to compare their workload to, in their eyes, this is like the largest workload they've ever done. So to them, it's like a lot of work. And like they stress and stress and stress. And like sometimes it's just a bit tiring. But yeah, it's kind of similar. And also, okay, this is another thing about my course that it's to do with age and experience. So a lot of people on my course, they act, it's almost like they're in competition with each other. Like on my course, not mentioning any names, obviously. Some people might be watching this live stream, but some of them, just from what I've observed, and I don't really talk to a lot of them. I just kind of observe them, and some of them are like in competition with each other, and they're constantly trying to like compete for like who's the best person on the course and stuff, and they don't realize that and some of them also try to like they do things where I'm just like in my head I'm just thinking like you do realize that once we graduate from this school all this stuff means nothing. So like they try to do things where they're in the good books of like our lecturers, for example, where they do things where like they're seen as like cool to people in older years. Like there's just stuff that I observe and I'm just like, you're going to learn anyway. Like all this like behavior, it's not going to fly in the industry when you graduate. And that like there's things people do that they so I think also people don't prioritize the right things. So there's things that people put so much work into that when it comes to actually getting a job when they graduate, it means absolutely nothing. But they don't realize it, but they will realize it when they graduate, type of thing. So there's just certain things that I notice, but I will never tell anyone on my course this. Probably some of them are watching this live stream now. Hopefully they think about what I've said, but I'm not going to tell them in person because if I tell them, it's going to come across like I'm the older guy who's like being condescending when I'm really not. It's just an observation. Because I made the same mistakes. Like I was 18 6 years ago. So I made the exact same mistakes that they're about to make, but I wouldn't tell them because I don't want to come across like I'm being condescending. But I just observe those things. Where are some good places to go in Leeds, fashion based or generally? Definitely go to the allotment store. There's a store in Leeds called the Hip Store. It's kind of like streetwear, but it's really cool. There are some really good thrift stores in Leeds. Like there's a place called the Corn Exchange. There's some cool stores there. There's like a vintage like military surplus kind of like store that makes super high quality stuff. That's really cool to check out in the Corn Exchange. And then opposite the Corn Exchange, there's this like street and there's an alleyway and there are loads of really good thrift stores in that alleyway. When did I start getting into fashion? Uh, when I was about 14, so that was 10 years ago. Do you know any other up and coming South Asian designers like Priya? Yeah, Supriya Lele. She's really good. I'm curious how you switched from chemical engineering to fashion. It wasn't really much of a switch because when I was studying chemical engineering, I was working in fashion the whole time. Like when I was studying chemical engineering, once the holidays came, so I'm talking Christmas, Easter, summer, I was doing fashion internships. Like I always knew, it got to a point I knew that I wanted to work in fashion. Like I knew the whole engineering thing wasn't going to be the direction I was going to go into anyway. Um, so I didn't see it as a switch because I was always working in fashion. So once I left uni, I was just like, okay, now I'm just going to go into it full time. And then I got a full time job for a year. And then I decided to go to CSM. So yeah. Yes, I'm still at CSM because I just finished first year. So I still have 2 years left. Where is the video? Where's the video on quality you're always talking about? What video? What do I want to do in fashion specifically? I talked about this earlier, but have my own fashion magazine and brand. Is it common that students are so young? Definitely would think that there were older people than you on the course. Nope. In the UK, I feel like people feel pressure to go to uni early, which in hindsight, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have gone to uni when I was 18. I would have waited. But yeah, everyone goes to uni when they're 18 or 19. It's just the English thing. And I think the reason why it's like that is because financially there aren't too many implications for going to uni. It's not like America where if you can't afford it, you're kind of screwed. We have a good system to where you get student loan, and it's not like a student loan in America where it's really hard to pay back. Like it's a really good, it's a student loan with good terms to where no one really cares about the loan because it's not like how we pay back the loan is if you earn less than £25,000 a year, you don't pay anything. After 25 years, the loan goes completely, and you have to pay back 8% of the loan over £25,000 a year that you earn. So you're barely going to have a hard time paying it back. So it's not like no one thinks of the financial implications, or not many people. Some people do, but not many people do. So everyone's just like, yep, I just finished school. I guess I'm going to go to uni. So most unis, everyone in the course, like 99.9% of the course will just be 18-year-olds. Like quite literally. I live in Wales right now, so there's not too many fashion-related job opportunities. Any advice on how to get a job in fashion? Oh, when there's not many job opportunities. Well, there are some jobs that you can get that are more online based. So like you can be, I don't know, a graphic designer. You can be a visual designer. Like there's many things you can do where it's online based, but then you'd have to build those skills. But in terms of like physical stuff like sewing, yeah, I think you just have to do that in your house and probably just like start a brand. It's almost impossible to really work in fashion where there are no fashion jobs, unless your job is online based, to be honest. Hey, I wanted to ask if I can send you some of the console clothes and fashion show clothes on my brand. Do you have a PO box something? Watch you since 2019. Keep going, mate. Thank you so much. Send me a DM on Instagram and I can get to you that way. Most people don't fully end up paying their degree. That's true. Exactly. So true. It gets written off. Yeah, 25 years after 25 years. You said that you would like your own fashion magazine. Would you be interested in doing photography? Yeah, I do. I did, even for my first issue, I did most of the photography. I did all the pictures that I didn't request from people were pictures taken by me, essentially. Yeah, Khadija, sorry, it's only for British citizens. If you're international, you have to pay international fees, which are super expensive, and I definitely couldn't afford it. and you don't get a loan as an international person. You have to have, how much is it? Like £16,000 a year to hand, which only rich people have. So that's why only rich international students come to the UK. Next live, I'm gonna hop on the stream. Yeah, you should definitely hop on. Definitely hop on. Advice for getting into fashion space in Leeds, and how do you recommend starting fashion writing? I go to Uni of Leeds. I want to write for my school's fashion week. Yo, shout out to Uni of Leeds. I literally, yeah, that's the school I went to, for people that don't know. So when I was in Leeds, personally, how did I well, I'm trying to think, because a lot of my friends are fashion people in Leeds. So there was a school called Leeds Arts University. I'm not sure what it's called now. I think it's like University of the Arts Leeds or something like that. And there were many like design students there and like photography students. And I linked up with guys like Oliver, Jess, Simi. Simi's like, I'm best friends with Simi now. And I literally met her in Leeds. And we kind of just like did creative stuff. Like I found them on like Instagram, and some of them found me on Instagram. We kind of just like, yo, it'd be cool to like do a shoot. And then that was when, because in Leeds, not many people are that into fashion. So they found the way I dressed quite interesting. So we used to do like loads of test shoots, and then it kind of expanded, and then all of us started going to like London Fashion Week, and then I became friends with I met this guy. So I met this guy called Yaku. Some guys might know him. I met him at a cold wall drop when I was like 16 or like 17, and then he happened to go to uni in Leeds as well. And he studied fashion design at Leeds Beckett. And because he studied fashion design at Leeds Beckett, I met a lot of the fashion design students through him. And now he's about to come to CSM. So he's doing his MA at CSM starting September. So we're back in the same school again, like in the same area again, which is hilarious. So I kind of met people through him. So it kind of just happens. You just have to, I don't know. I've always been someone it's really hard to explain because it comes naturally to me, but you just have to put yourself out there. Like, don't be scared to message people on Instagram. Like, yo, I think you're cool. Like, we should meet up at some point. Don't be scared to do that. Like, people want to network as well. I think people are just a bit shy. And once you're the one who reaches out, things start to open. So yeah, that's just my advice. Just have to kind of not hustle, but be willing to talk to different people. I thought the certain countries didn't have to show financial proof to get student visa for the UK. The list is very Western centric problematic, but that's beside the point. Yeah, I don't know too much about that, to be fair. A very long time. Answer to this question, because Maria, even though I personally don't like her work, it does well commercially, and that's all the bosses care about. So yeah. Should I know this, at least considering I want to apply for CSM from the US? If you want to apply for CSM for the US, the two most important things you need to consider are, one, do you have enough money to pay the international fees? Which, if you do, you have a 50% higher chance of getting accepted than like someone who's based in the UK, just based on money. And secondly, how easy is it to get a visa, which in your case, coming from the US as a US citizen, will be very easy, to be fair. So I don't think it's anything you should consider. And also, in the UK, it wasn't like that before, but now, so in the UK before, once you graduate, your student visa expires, and then you have to like go back to wherever you like came from originally, which was like so messed up because so many people would like, they had built a base in the country that they're studying. But now there's a rule where you have, once you graduate, you have like a 2-year space to find a job. And if you find a job between that 2-year space, you get to like stay as a permanent resident in the UK, and you get a different visa. You get like a work visa instead of a student visa. So things are a lot better for students coming to London versus how it used to be. Kind of mad how the way you talk has changed so much in the last year, not in a bad way, of course. How has the way I talk changed? Has it changed, really? I haven't realized. Someone said my speaking sounds more confident. Do you know what it is? I think maybe I'm just used to being in front of inanimate objects all the time and speaking to screens. So maybe that's why. Has Sebastian left? Yeah, Sebastian Munier left Andy quite a while ago, actually. Like, a lot has happened. What would you advise for someone living in the UK outside of London who wouldn't be able to study fashion in London due to financial constraints? Um, there are still fashion schools that are good outside of London, just not as good as London. But you can, there's schools in like Leeds and the schools in Manchester. There's a really good. I think Manchester Met is like known for design courses. It's actually quite good. So yeah, you don't have to go to London. Obviously, it's better, but you don't have to. Affording CSM isn't completely out of my league, but also it's not going to be easy. The vast majority of schools in the US are even worse financially. That's true. That's true. I can imagine, especially like Parsons, those schools are so expensive. I don't know how anyone can afford to go there without being a millionaire, to be fair. The cost of American fashion colleges, when I hear the cost, it's just like so insane. But yeah, if you can afford, honestly, apply. I think coming from the US, it'll be easy to get a visa. And if you can afford it, I think, yeah, going to CSM. I don't know what course you want to do, but going to CSM, if you make the best of it, will be very beneficial for your career. But if you waste it and you just go there and you just like cruise and you just go there to design and you don't really network, then you're not maximizing coming to London. This is a good point too. Some of the more technically skilled unis outside of London. I agree with this. A lot of people do YouTube streaming for a while, change their voice so they get more comfortable talking to a camera. Yeah, probably. I think over time, because it's kind of weird, like now talking, I am literally talking to a piece of plastic webcam and looking at screens. So it's almost like I'm talking to myself, which sounds kind of insane. But eventually you get used to it, which is why you kind of, it's normal. Before it was like so weird to me. I accentuate so much more and your intonation is way more expressive. I'll take it. It's crazy we have some things in common. Though both went to Leeds, Nigerians, and into fashion. Yeah, that's crazy. That's insane. I don't know if you're like always in Leeds, but we can meet up as well, so we can do that networking there. Because I go to Leeds from time to time when I go to the allotment store. Like I'm probably going to go to Leeds in 2 weeks or so, like before I go to Belgium. So yeah, I went to LIM after I had Parsons prices. Loki, you sound like what your expression of your course leader was. Watching Brazil, wondering if you're familiar with any South American designers. I've talked about a few. Obviously, Piet. I'm not sure how you explain it, how you pronounce it. Is a brand from Brazil that I've looked at for a while. There's brands like I know a lot of brands in like Mexico, like brands like Sanchez Kane, and I don't really know. Yeah, South American designers. Yeah, I don't know too many to be fair, and I should probably look into it because I like looking at fashion in terms of like a world view. I guess I'm just not like the places that I research about fashion. I just don't really see a lot of South American fashion. So if you can actually suggest any for me to look at, I'll be really happy. Do you have any plan fashion history and theory at CSM and how to stand out? Oh, send me a DM because I'm not on the course. I do fashion journalism and I have a lot of friends who study fashion history and theory. So if you send me a DM, I can actually connect you with some people who study it and they would be like in a better position to like lead you in the right direction. Is it best to go to Japanese fashion schools or UK fashion schools? Very broad. Some UK fashion schools, very broad. But if you're talking about like CSM and Westminster versus Japanese schools, it depends. CSM and Westminster will teach you how to be a creative mind. It will teach you how to like run every process of how to manage every process of fashion, but not necessarily how to do it. Whereas if you go to school in Japan, like Bunka, they teach you more sewing and pattern making, like skills that are more useful working for a brand. So it's almost like in Japan, they teach you to work for a brand, which is kind of more useful. And then in CSM, they teach you how to be the creative director, which is why a lot of people at CSM fail. Because how many creative directors are like, how many people that start their own brands are actually going to be successful? Not many. So yeah, it just depends on what you're trying to be good at. No, I haven't talked about Donda because like so many people have asked me about it and I don't even know anything about it because I haven't like been following it. So yeah, Yolo, I should probably ask you about what happened because you probably know everything about what happened with Donda. Thoughts on Pierre Moss? I'm a fan of Pierre Moss. I'll just leave it there. Cool. I own some Piat pieces, but I personally think they've gone too commercial. Yeah, I haven't seen their recent stuff, but it's a brand that over the years I used to look at, and it was quite interesting because the first time I heard of them, I think they collaborated with Nike, and then I saw that it was a brand from Brazil, and I kind of like followed what they were doing. But that's kind of sad that they've gone really like too commercial. Am I making any videos with Sanjeev? Not really. I'm sure he would like to, and I would like to, but as far as I know, he lives in Berlin. I think he moved to Berlin. So yeah, if the opportunity arises, we could. But yeah, not anytime soon. Is Bottega Veneta overhyped? Slightly it is. Have I been watching the Chelsea matches? Of course I have. I'm a Chelsea fan, of course. I watch every Chelsea match. And I watched the last one, and we were kind of lucky to come away with a draw. What is going on with Haider Ackermann? I could not tell you. All I know is that the brand was struggling financially for a really long time. And then we just haven't heard anything from the brand since like last year. So it's probably because of financial reasons. You know way too much. Yeah, look, I'm gonna call you after this live, and you have to give me a rundown on like the whole Donda thing. Need to trying to consume nearly every video in the past week, shouting from American South Dallas. Shout out to Dallas, Texas. Shout out. If we're talking about Zero, I recommend you check out. Oh, let me write this down. One sec. You should check out the sources. Be pilfered. I know exactly. Oh no. Oh no. Do running and football game with Sanjeev. Yeah, that's long overdue. We need to do that at some point. What do you think Phoebe will bring to the industry with her resurgence? I don't know, because it can be two things. It's either she brings back her whole timeless, minimalistic, chic aesthetic, or she could go in a totally different direction and bring us an aesthetic we've never seen from Phoebe, which is what I want her to do. But it might not necessarily be what she actually does. But we'll see. We'll see. Someone's talking about bunker and English courses. Yeah, that's another thing. You have to actually be able to speak Japanese. And Japanese is not the easiest language to learn. For me, as an English speaker, at least, I'm trying to think of what the easiest language is for me to learn. Dutch is definitely like quite Dutch and French are quite similar to English in the way that there's so many Dutch and French words that you can guess as an English speaker and get them right. So for someone like me, an English speaker, I could try and study in somewhere like France and not have a hard time. But someone like Japan, hell no. Learning Japanese would just be like impossible. You should do your rate and slate video on your peers at CSM. These people are trying to get me hated on my course. Is it worth taking courses at the London College of Fashion? It depends. One thing I want to say, I found it really so interesting yet calming and inspiring. Thank you very much. On that note, it's going to 3 hours, and to be fair, I need to like make food and do some work. But this was really fun doing another live stream. So thank you to everyone that tuned in. Hopefully, I should be able to, release a video soon, but don't quote me on that. I'm so busy with work, but I'm trying so hard to stay consistent on YouTube. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm gonna run to the post box.